Opening statement, please.
Planning Board of Adjustment meeting Thursday, May 13th, 2021. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Planning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 8th, 2021, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Tri-Town News. Second, on January 8th, 2021, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 8th, 2021, said notice was posted in the office of the Planning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. Members of the public will have a chance to ask questions and comment on applications once the chairman opens the hearing up to members of the public. If you wish to ask questions or comment on an application, you will need to use the raise your hand feature and we will bring you into the meeting one at a time. You will need to have audio and video capability. You will be sworn in and you will be required to provide your name and address. For anyone calling in, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. To lower your hand, you dial *9 again. Please remember this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bavai has been excused. Mr. Dorado,
You're muted. Oh,
could all the members please put their video and audio on? I'll come back. Was that Mr. Dorado?
Here.
Mr. Husser?
Here.
Chief Kudrick?
it keeps dropping in and out.
There
Let
he
me-
is.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr.
Keep getting
Leggio?
kicked out.
Here.
Mr. Nicastro?
Present.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Present.
Mr. Seaman?
Here.
Ms. Casper?
Here.
Mr. Cristiano?
Here.
And Chairman Tannenhouse.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, can everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for all of our first responders and troops serving both here and abroad. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, first bit of business is approval of minutes. We have an approval of regular meeting March 18th, 2021. Eligible voters. Mr. Dorado, Chief Kudrick, Mr. Leggio, Mr. Cristiano, and myself.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Who was the second? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Dorado,
Yes.
Chief Kudrick,
Dropped out again.
Mr. Leggio,
Trying to log
Yes.
back in.
Mr. Cristiano,
Yes.
and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes, and yes, Chief again.
Chief Kudrick, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, next approval of minutes for regular meeting April 1, 2021. Eligible voters are Mr. Husser, Mr. Leggio, Mr. DeCastro, Mr. Seaman, and myself. Do I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Husser,
Yes.
Mr. Leggio,
Yes.
Mr. Nicastro,
Yes.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, next approval of minutes is regular meeting, April 15th, 2021. Eligible voters are Mr. Dorado, Mr. Husser, Chief Kudrick, Mr. Leggio, Councilwoman Richmond, Mr. Seaman, Mr. Cristiano, and myself. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mr. Castro.
No, it wasn't me.
Oh, was you?
Cristiano.
Raising your hand.
Mr. Dorado,
Yes.
Mr. Husser,
Yes.
Chief Kudrick,
Just dropped off. Y'all can come back to him. He's not having a good internet day.
no. Mr.
Must be
Leggio,
out piece.
I'm not getting Mr. Leggio either.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Cristiano,
Yes.
Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes, and Chief raised it, and Chief stated he said yes as well.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay. Any vouchers?
I have no vouchers this evening.
Any correspondence?
I do have correspondence. Actually, I spoke to Todd Cohen's secretary today, and Mr. Cohen had a death in the family and had to go out of town. He has an application on for submission waivers for Chris Altaver. He asked that we please move that to next week's meeting. And it's something that doesn't have to be noticed. I told him it was no problem.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I also have a letter or an email from Mr. Pape, who also has submission waivers on this evening for Black Rock Enterprises. He said this letter is a request to withdraw the request for waivers. He is going to prepare revised plans, and after the plans have been submitted, he will return with a new request for a waiver hearing. So that is off the agenda as well.
Okay, so we have no waivers for tonight
No
then.
waivers, and that's all I have in correspondence.
Okay, sorry to hear about Todd's family.
Yes.
Okay, resolutions then.
Okay, the
We
first
have,
7-Eleven is not ready, so we could take that off.
we got New Jersey Natural Gas I saw, and you saw the Oso brothers as well.
Yes, and one for the ordinance.
And one for the ordinance, correct. Okay, let's do the case number SP-9938, New Jersey Natural Gas Company. Eligible voters are Mr. Dorado, Mr. Husser, Chief Kudrick, Mr. Leggio, Councilwoman Richmond, Mr. Seaman, Mr. Cristiano, and myself. Do I have a motion?
Motion memorialized.
Thank you.
Second.
1 second. Thank
Second.
you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorado,
Yes.
Mr. Husser,
Yes.
Chief Kudrick, I think dropped out again. Mr. Leggio,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Cristiano,
Yes.
Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
I'll leave the chief out.
Okay, like to get a motion for resolution of case number SP-1012A, the Oso Brothers. Eligible voters are Mr. Dorado, Chief Kudrick, Mr. Leggio, Mr. Cristiano, and myself. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Okay, do I have a
Second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
call,
who was the
please.
second?
Cristiano.
Thank you. Mr. Dorado,
Yes.
Chief Kudrick.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I
Mr.
switched
Leggio,
computers.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mr. Cristiano,
Yes.
and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
And then we have, the next one up is the resolution. Eileen, can you please help me out with the name of it? I'm
It is the
looking through my
resolution.
emails.
Is the resolution for ordinance number 021-10. It was a review of the proposed ordinance 2110, which was removing warehouses from the SED zone as a permitted use. Eligible
Okay.
are Mr. Dorado, Mr. Husser, Chief Kudrick, Mr. Leggio, Councilwoman Richmond, Mr. Seaman, Mr. Cristiano, and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Thank you. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorado,
I abstain.
Hold on. You did not abstain from that. You're abstaining from the vote?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
I mean, what was the motion for this vote? Because didn't we find that it was not consistent with the master plan?
We found it was not consistent with the master plan, and then
Right.
we do a resolution memorializing what we said as far as it's inconsistent.
All right. So that's, yeah.
That, all
That's
right.
a yes. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Leggio?
So let me just be clear here. We're voting that it's not consistent with the master plan because of,
We
Happened-
voted, we voted on that the last meeting. This is just a resolution memorializing the action that the board took at the last meeting. That's all it is.
well, I'm not sure how I want to vote on this after what happened at your council meeting last night. So
It's a
I need some,
resolution. It's a resolution, John. You're memorializing a resolution. Has nothing to do with what happened last night.
And we tabled it on Tuesday, right?
It doesn't matter what the council did. This is a resolution
Okay.
memorializing what the board did a month ago, reviewing that ordinance. If Mr.
With period, vote yes, we found it not consistent. A vote yes means you're affirming your decision. Vote it
Right.
not consistent.
then yeah,
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Cristiano,
Yes.
and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes.
Brian, I didn't get your vote.
I'm sorry, I said yes.
Thank you. I think you froze up for a minute.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, we're done with resolutions, correct?
Yes, you are.
Okay, we're gonna get to our first case, case number SP-1079, 41 Kent Road, LLC.
And this is one of Todd's cases, but he has attorney Adam Pfeffer sitting in for him for this evening.
Okay.
Mr.
Professor?
Do you know who you need brought into the meeting?
Yes, it should be Chet Sermont, Christine Cafone, and David Feldman.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
They should all be in.
Are we all in?
And I know there was some comments that came to the board today from Mr. Yost. Mr. Pfeffer, you're aware of those comments?
I am not, but my engineer might be, or my planner.
Yeah, I think they were sent to the engineer.
Okay. Are we ready to begin?
Yes, but Mr. Vermont is not. We need audio and video.
Chet, are you able to turn on your video? Okay. Chet, are you there?
Adam, maybe we can give him a call on his cell phone and see.
Yeah.
Just give us a minute. I'll try to reach him.
Okay, thanks.
Testing. You got me?
Yeah, we just can't see you.
Okay.
Can you turn on your video?
How we doing?
We
There
have,
you go.
There you
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you ready? Can we proceed?
Yes, please, proceed.
Good evening, Adam Pfeffer, on behalf of the applicant, 41 Kent Road LLC. This evening, I have three possible witnesses for the board. First is Mr. Sermont, the engineer, Ms. Christine Cafone, who will give planning testimony. And should the board have any questions regarding the architectural plans, we have Mr. David Feldman as well. At this time, if we can swear in our first witness, Mr. Sermont, who could address the application and walk us through the plans.
Mr. Sermont, could you please raise your right hand? Mr. Sermont, do you swear or affirm that any testimony provided before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Can you please provide us
Welcome.
your business address for the record?
My business address is 301 Main Street, Allenhurst.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, do you accept, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mr. Sermont, if you need his credentials to have him accepted as an expert?
Yes,
So you accept him or you need him to put his credentials on?
you have to put your credentials on, Mr. Simone.
Oh, no problem.
Please.
Okay. I'm a 1984 graduate of Lehigh University, where I obtained my engineering degree. And since a little after that, I've been engaged in surveying and site planning. And I've been licensed by the state as an engineer and a surveyor for almost 30 years. And I've presented plans and testified before many boards in Monmouth County, including this one.
Thank you. We'll accept your credentials. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sermont, if you can, just give us an overview of the project and walk us through your comments. And if you can, any exhibits you're going to be referring to, if you can, please just mark them, starting with A1, and if there are any dates for any of those exhibits.
some exhibits were pre-marked.
I'm sorry, where are they? So you can begin.
Am I ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. What do you have, Eileen? Do you have a, do you have a site plan to put up?
Can, if that's what you want. Give me
Sure,
one.
thank you.
Go. I don't know what page you want.
Chair,
Let's
which
scroll through, or can,
What page would you like?
let's go one more. That's a good one.
That one?
Yeah, that's good. That, that'll help describe the project. Okay, so this audio is terrible. The subject property sits on Route 9 southbound between, well, it also fronts on Kent Road. The property has about 185 feet of frontage on Route 9, about 550 feet of depth, and about 160 feet of frontage on Kent Road. The property is just over, a little more than 2 acres at 91,430 square feet. What we've proposed on this project is a two-story office building with a parking garage below. The office building has a square footage of 17,430 square feet on each floor, for a total of about just shy of 35,000 square feet. Along with the building will be a parking lot containing 119 spaces. The circulation of the site allows entry and exit from Route 9, as well as two-way entry and exit on Kent Road, allowing for both in and out in both directions on Kent. As part of the project, there'll be a dedication along Kent Road of 13.5 feet to bring that to the design half width of 30 feet. Along with the building and the parking lot, we're providing obviously landscaping along the south perimeter of the parking lot, and along the north part of the property, we are proposing a little bit of landscaping and a short retaining wall. And I mean, that's an overview of the property. I can discuss some of the more detailed features that were raised in the engineer's report if you'd like.
Yeah, let's Stephen, do we want to swear in our professionals and just have Laura ask some questions?
I mean, usually I thought we swore in for the submission waivers, but we can swear in. Laura, are you ready?
Yeah.
Can you raise your right hand, Laura? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you provide before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Laura.
Chet, why don't you walk us through the variances and you can
Yeah, let me just point out the couple of variances that we're asking for. The one main variance we're asking for is a side yard setback relief of 25 feet on the south side of the building, 31.3 feet on the north side of the building. And though 25 feet is permitted in the zone, the height of the building at 42 feet necessitates a side yard setback of 42 feet. So that's the main variance we're asking for, is this would be the side yard setback relief. There are a couple other variances associated with the residential buffer up against Kent Road. As you well know, there's a requirement for a 50-foot residential buffer. And that buffer, with the exception of the drive aisle, is required to be not disturbed. Let me just make sure I read it right. Yeah, there's if you're familiar with that area at all, most of that frontage, except for maybe the northerly 25 feet, is currently cleared. There is some vegetation right up against that north property line, but that's really it for the frontage of Kent Road. The plan does propose some grading within that area, but the grading is concentrated in a previously disturbed area. So the grading we're proposing is really there to facilitate the landscaping that we're proposing to create a buffer. So though we technically need a variance for grading in that area, it leads into the second variance that was cited by Laura in her report, and that would be the establishment of the buffer in that 50-foot area. And apparently we would need relief from that because we don't strictly comply with the ordinance requirements for establishing that buffer. What we're proposing is of a berm of about 3 to 4 feet with predominantly evergreen trees planted at about 6 to 7 feet high. Eileen, if you have the rendering, maybe that would show that a little better.
We'll mark that A2.
Thank you.
Actually, the color rendering is already marked as A12.
Even better. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm obviously discussing the area up by Kent Road. The area I'm speaking of where there's a little bit of grading disturbance, or the area where there's existing vegetation that may be affected by the grading areas, is again just limited to that extreme northern 20 feet or so. And you can see on the rendering what we've proposed along the south half of the frontage. That it's hard to see the grading in there, but the grading is providing a berm of about 3 feet, and predominantly Colorado blue spruce with a few deciduous trees included to break up the evergreens. But apparently, technically, it does not meet the requirement of section 188-63E. So we're willing to adapt our landscaping that area to the board's wishes. But again, we're seeking that variance relief. So so just those two variances related to the buffer and the side yard setback relief related to the height of the building.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Newman, do you have any comments?
I would reserve comment for the planning testimony and then defer to Christine.
Okay. Mr. Pfeffer, does this conclude your expert testimony?
Unless the board has any questions for.
No. Sorry, I do then. I mean, no, we need to go through all the design waivers.
Yeah.
I have some discussion comments that I can go through, and I'd like to know whether or not you agree with the technical comments.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not sure if you want me to run through this so that it's a little bit more pointed.
If you'd like, I don't mind.
Okay, so as it relates to design relief associated with the plan, the parking spaces, our ordinance requires them to be 19 feet in length, 18 feet is proposed.
Yes.
I know sometimes this is typical relief we see, but what is the rationale behind that, Mr. Surmont?
Well, the rationale is 18 feet has been well established as a sufficient parking stall depth, and really just adding it to 19 feet just creates additional impervious cover that's unnecessary.
And continuing, application should have a 30-foot wide circulation aisle, 25 feet wide is proposed in the interior of the site. Have you reviewed this with our fire bureau?
I have.
And did they have any exception to the aisle widths as proposed?
Well, when we met with him, we went over the plan with him. He made some suggestions that we actually amended our plan to address. One of which was the addition of a fire hydrant near the Route 9 entry. Another was creating a means of getting to the south side of the building a little easier, and that was achieved by removing the curbed island at the southeast corner of the building. He felt that area was a little tight. He has mentioned, he didn't mention it in our meeting, but he did mention in his report his concern with the north drive aisle having sufficient width to meet his requirements. So that came as a little bit of a surprise because he hadn't raised it when he had met with him, and I haven't had an opportunity to speak with him since just reviewing his report this morning.
Well, I think part of that goes to the next items of relief. So all aisles are supposed to, other than main aisles, should be 25 feet wide. You have 24 feet wide, and then two-way circulation aisles where you have 90-degree parking shall be 25 feet wide, and you have 24. So I would ask, because you are doing a shallow parking stall size, so we have 18 feet where 19 feet is required, and then we have this reduction of an additional foot on the drive aisles. I mean, can you revise those to at least comply?
Well, we do provide the 25-foot drive aisle in the exterior parking. The only place it is not provided is in the interior parking in the garage, and that's solely because the building has been designed at 60 feet wide, which pretty much sets the sets the layout of the parking as a 24-foot aisle with 18 feet on either side. The building would have to be widened by a foot in order to provide that additional foot of width. But everywhere else, we do provide the 25-foot wide drive aisle.
Just the area beneath the building then?
Yes,
Okay, one loading space is required for an office use and you have no loading space proposed?
we do not. We, in speaking with the owner, he didn't feel a need for a loading space, designated loading space to be provided. He doesn't anticipate deliveries in a building like this other than a UPS or a FedEx delivery.
And what type of tenants is driving that?
Just office use.
So would you be willing to accept the condition that there would be no tractor trailer deliveries to the site and that this would strictly be by FedEx or UPS truck?
Yes,
I think we would, but Adam, maybe,
yes.
yes, okay.
I'll confirm, but I don't see any issue with that.
And moving to the next one, so it looks like you do not meet all the required replacement trees based upon the clearing area, and that you'd be seeking to make a contribution to the township's tree fund due to the
We can't, though we are landscaping as best we can. We're not meeting the replacement requirement. So yes, whatever balance there would be a contribution to the fund.
And I guess, Shari, have you walked this site? Do you concur?
No, I haven't went out on the site. I'm familiar with it, but yeah, I mean, there's no way that they're going to be able to plant it, so they would definitely need to ask for a waiver.
Okay. The trash enclosure shall be screened by a minimum 5 feet tall.
They shall be. That was an oversight, not including that. They absolutely will.
Retaining walls cannot be closer than 5 feet to any property line, and you have a retaining wall at 2 feet along the northern line.
We do, and that retaining wall runs for about 200 feet along the portion of the north property line. It's generally no high. The majority of the wall is about 18 inches high. It does reach a maximum height of 3 feet at one point. So we felt, given the shortness of the wall, that it was reasonable to ask for the waiver of setback.
And as a condition of approval, would you be willing to agree to stake your property line in the field before that wall is constructed to ensure that we have no adverse impacts to the adjoining property or encroachments during construction?
We would, even without making it a condition of approval, yes.
The next item, no stormwater shall spill over the wall, and swale area must be constructed behind the wall. You have a retaining wall along the north side property line, which allows stormwater to spill over with no swale. Is that an emergency overflow only?
I'm sorry. What do you mean? I'm not following that question.
So it appears that you have that retaining wall will allow it to ultimately spill over the top of it?
Yes. Just that 3 feet of landscaping behind the curb.
And that's not going to cause any adverse impacts to the adjoining property?
Again, it's primarily landscaped, and everything forward. Again, given the limited amount of area that is overflowing that wall, again, it's about 3 feet of mulch landscaping. Again, we did not think that amount of runoff would cause any impact on the adjoining property owner.
Will less water go to the adjoiner than
Yes, ultimately, yes.
Will you agree to provide a cross-section detail of the retaining wall?
Certainly.
The next item, parking lot layout, landscaping, buffering, and screening shall be provided to minimize direct views of parking vehicles from streets and sidewalks. Shall be a minimum 3 foot high, visually impervious screen, hedge, or wall. And landscaping has been provided in that area, but it just doesn't meet that minimum size requirement. Would you be able to increase it to comply?
Yes, we will increase the landscaping to comply with the 3 foot high requirement.
And the next item is architectural. I believe you have an architect, but the wall of the building does not have any facade exceeding 50 feet in length shall be incorporate wall projections or recesses, a minimum 3-foot depth, and shall extend over 10% of the facade. Your facade exceeds 50 feet and has no projections or recesses along the north and south sides of the building.
Apparently, yes.
All right,
Yes.
so I would defer, and I would want to hear architectural testimony.
And I
Typically,
see Mr. Feldman's here. Yes.
typically the board does not allow a blank facade. They like to see some level of change in textures and projection. So I'll continue to go through the report, but Mr. Chairman, I would say that we need to defer that to the architect on testimony.
Yeah, Ms. Newman, is that also for both sides, the north and the south side of the building? Because they're gonna have Route 9, view on both sides of the building.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it is. And I think both sides need to be dressed up. So I think we'll defer to the architect, but I'll continue to go through the engineer.
Okay, thank you.
Each business not situated on a corner shall have one main business sign, either a wall facade projecting or freestanding. You have 2 freestanding signs, one along each frontage. And we did note that you do have 2 frontages, but you're a through lot. So certainly, I sort of understand having signs along both roadways. Do you anticipate any facade signs in addition to that?
No.
What is your anticipated number of tenants?
I don't have, I'm not privy to that information.
Do you know anything on the hours of operation? I know you said it's an office use.
Oh, yes.
Used relative to the loading testimony.
Entirely office use.
And the hours of operation will be consistent with the town ordinance?
I would imagine so.
I would recommend that a lot consolidation be required since this is multiple lots, 4, 5, and 15. So I would request that the board require that as a condition.
Certainly.
Then we just questioned the tree removal and the ability to build that retaining wall on the southern property line. And I think we kind of talked about that you were agreeing to stake that out, but we thought maybe you could reduce some of the mature tree removal on that area. So you may want to walk that with Sherry to see if any trees can be saved.
You mean between the refuse enclosure heading west?
Yeah, it's the parking stalls facing south.
Yeah. Okay. No, I did look at that. I don't think we can do much in there, but I'm certainly walking with Sherry and get her opinion.
Okay, I believe we spoke to loading. You have indicated that no building mounted signage is proposed. Do you anticipate any internal directional signage?
Perhaps. I honestly didn't. I didn't determine that yet. There may be.
All right,
but,
so we would need to see that. So I'd recommend that maybe through the course you confirm with your client, because if in fact directional signage is proposed, we'd want to be able to review that in conformance with the ordinance, and you are here for preliminary and final. Okay. Illumination of the signs. How do we anticipate lighting those?
I can say we'll comply with the ordinance. Were you looking for something more specific than that?
No, as long as you'll comply with the ordinance.
Yes.
The drainage of the site, can you just walk the board through the?
Oh, sure. We have 2 underground drainage systems proposed. There's a linear infiltration system that runs beneath the north drive aisle, the entire length of the building. And that system is designed to handle the roof runoff. There's a second system that's located west of the proposed building in the parking circulation area between the building and Kent Road. That system is designed to pick up the parking lot runoff through a series of 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 or 9 inlets throughout the property. Prior to entering that infiltration system, the stormwater will run through a series of water quality treatment devices. There's 3 circles just to the north of the underground detention system, off the northwest corner of the building. Those are the 3 water treatment devices in series that would treat the parking lot stormwater prior to entering the infiltration system. And it has been designed in accordance with the applicable NJDEP stormwater management regulations.
As it relates to the town's ordinance regarding standards of performance, you agree to comply?
Yes.
And then I think, as was indicated earlier, as it relates to frontage improvement, certainly on Route 9, we would defer to the DOT. But Mr. Yost did provide comments today. Do you agree to comply with those?
Yes, Mr. Yost asked that we widen Kent Road south of our proposed driveway to line up with the curb that exists north of our property, and at the same time provide sidewalk along the frontage of Kent Road. And we certainly agree to both of those suggestions.
And one thing, I'm not sure that I missed it, but is there sidewalk along Route 9?
There is no sidewalk along Route 9.
Okay, so I think that's an oversight in the R report, but a waiver relief would be required. I'm certainly going to defer comment to the board on that. Typically, especially with applications on Route 9, we will request that sidewalk be installed, but I would reserve comment to the board. And then I guess in conclusion, Mr. Samant, we have a technical review. Do you agree to comply with all comments contained therein?
I do.
So, Mr. Chairman, I realize I kind of walked through. I'd like to hear the board's comments relative to sidewalk, and certainly if you have any questions from the information presented. But I do think we still need to hear from the architect, and I do think we need to hear from the planner relative to the relief associated with the application.
Yeah, okay. For me, I don't know what the board feels, but for me, the biggest concern for me is that the fire department or fire bureau had some significant comments and hasn't had an opportunity to see the updated set of plans. Does anybody else have any comments?
But going back to the
Like
sidewalks,
that.
I think we should not grant the waiver for sidewalks on Route 9. The goal has been to put sidewalks on Route 9.
I would agree. Is the applicant, Mr. Pfeffer, is the applicant, guess what the proper word is what is his position on the sidewalks? If the board is not interested in giving the relief.
I'm going to check with him right now. I don't think it's a problem. I'm going to check with him as we speak. Also, I could answer, I did get the answer on the box trucks, UPS trucks. That's fine, restricting it to only those type of trucks and no tractor trailers. That is acceptable. I will get the other answer for you. I'm not sure if anybody has any other questions of our engineer. We can move on to our planner and I can get those answers for you.
Anybody else have any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Sermont. Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes, if we could swear in
your planner, please.
Christine Cafone.
Ms. Cafone, do you swear
Yes.
from the testimony you provided before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Christine Nazaro Cafone. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been practicing for 25 years. As such, I've been qualified here in Howell at the Planning and Zoning Board on multiple occasions and in well in excess of over 400 planning and zoning boards throughout the state of New Jersey. I currently teach planning and zoning courses for the Rutgers Center for Government Services. I'm an affordable housing special master in about 30 different municipalities, and my license is current and valid.
Thank you, Ms. Cafone. We'll accept your credentials.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the subject property, as the board knows, is located, it's what, as Ms. Newman characterized correctly, as a through lot, as we have frontage on both Route 9 and Kent Road. And we are located in the township's HD1 Highway Development 1 zoning district. So we are certainly a permitted use, and we really, while we need a number of waivers that Ms. Newman was kind enough to go through on our behalf, and there were some obviously that we agreed to eliminate, The variance relief that we're requesting in conjunction with this application is actually very minimal. In our initial application, we were requesting a coverage variance and a front yard setback variance, but we had made some modifications to our plans to eliminate those variances. So we are requesting variances for several existing nonconformities associated with the subject property that will not be changed or exacerbated as a result of this application. And those are really dimensional variances that relate to the lot frontage. We have an existing nonconforming frontage of 182.92 on Route 9 and 158.30 feet on Kent Road. So the subject is somewhat irregularly shaped in that as it has about 300, for the first 300 linear feet of it, it's far more narrow along Route 9 than it is wide. That is, in my opinion, one of the contributing factors to the variance relief that's required, and sets up, I think, for the C1 side, sets up very well for a C1 justification for the side yard setback variance. As Mr. Sermont indicated, the minimum requirement for a side yard setback in this zone is 25 feet, but then there's an add-on requirement that you have to be set back the height of the building, which would require us to have a side yard setback of 42 feet, where we are proposing 25 feet on one side, and then I think it was about 31.3 on the north side. So we are asking for relief. We do meet the minimum of 25, but the deviation from your ordinance comes in because we are required to meet also our building height. Now, the building height in the zone is allowed to be up to 45 feet. We're only at 42 feet, and that's where the side yard setback relief comes in. But again, it is somewhat narrower and irregular of a shape of property. So I think that that sets up for the C1 variance. The other variance that we're requesting, and Mr. Sermont talked about this earlier as well, is that we are asking for a variance because we need to disturb and do some grading in the buffer along Kent Road. And I think that that is what I would consider under the C2 statutory criteria, because I think that represents a flexible C variance where we really are providing some landscaping in this area, and it is in an existing already disturbed area. So I think the board can grant the variances under the C1 and C2 statutory criteria, in that we advance the purposes of the municipal land use law, criteria G, which talks about sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses. I think that this is a great location for this proposed use. I don't disagree that we should be providing sidewalks here. I know that that is a goal of the township, so I'm glad to see that the applicant is willing to do that, because I do think that the sidewalk will be utilized, and this is an appropriate location, given the use and the commercial nature of the property and the surrounding property and the commercial zoning, that would be appropriate. And I think reliance on criteria G. But I also think criteria I, which talks about a desirable visual environment, you'll hear a little bit from our architect later on this evening. He is on the call, and he can talk about some of the breaks and the articulations that we have in our building. But I think certainly, if the breaks don't occur at 50, I believe they may occur at around 56 feet or so, but I think you'll hear more testimony from that. But I'm confident that, our architecture will be sensitive. We do understand that this is a through lot, so we will be visible from both the Route 9 corridor as well as Kent. So it is important that we meet those non-architectural design guidelines in the ordinance. And I think that you'll hear from our architect a commitment to do that. And I think we could also rely on criteria I as such, creating a desirable visual environment. But I also think the board can rely on criteria M, which talks about a utilization of the efficient use of the land. And I think that while we do need some reasonable waivers on this property, I think, as Mr. Sermont testified earlier, that it really is a more efficient layout. We don't certainly want to make the driveways any wider than they need to be, or the drive aisles. And I think it's really only in certain locations that they're not conforming. But I do think that the layout that we've proposed is efficient and does take advantage of this somewhat irregularly shaped piece of property. So I think, again, Ms. Newman was kind enough to walk through the waiver relief and the justification on the waiver section is really, is the grant of the waivers, are they reasonable, and are they, the minimum required to still meet the intent of the ordinance? And I think you heard a commitment on behalf of our team that we will increase the planting heights and increase and eliminate actually quite a few of the waivers required in conjunction with this application. So I think what we're left with is an efficient site layout that certainly is for a use that's permitted in the HD1 zone and is certainly well suited to the subject property. And so that's the positive criteria for the grant of the variance. The law also requires us to testify to what's called the negative criteria. The negative criteria, and the law does not require you to hold this or any other applicant to a standard that there be no detriments, just that the benefit of the grant of the variance outweigh any detriment and the detriment not rise to the level of substantial. And here, when you look at the fact that, we comply really with the lion's share of the bulk criteria for the HD1 zone, excepting the side yard setback, that's really the only bulk deviation that we have required in conjunction with this application. And when you look at what the stated purpose of the HD1 zone, the purposes of that district, and this is specifically in your ordinance, is to provide for highway-oriented development in the Route 9 corridor. So I think this application certainly does that. It does it at an intensity and that is respectful of both the zoning standards, but as well as the fact that this is a commercial corridor. And then again, when you look at the 2019 reexamination report and some of the goals that were articulated in there, one of them was to encourage the redevelopment and revitalization of vacant or underutilized properties. And I would consider this site to be falling in the category of underutilized, as it is currently located, with frontage on a state arterial and not really contributing a whole lot to the stated purpose of the HD1 zone as it's currently developed. So I do think that the application meets its statutory burden of proof. I think the modifications that we have agreed to and stipulated to on the record tonight would certainly allow for satisfaction of the negative criteria and allow for the board to find that there's no substantial impact to your zone plan or to the public good, the area which surrounds this application. You heard that we agreed to a number of restrictions as far as the type of trucks that would visit the subject property or be permissible on the subject property to substantiate the not having the loading dock or the loading zone. So, and I think that's an appropriate consideration. So taken, together, I think if you look at this, really is a substantially conforming application, and certainly an application that, in my opinion, as a planner, conforms with the stated purpose and vision for not only the HD1 zone, but also the master plan. And I think that the variance and waiver relief is really conservative and not something that would rise to such a level that it would have a substantial detriment on either the public good or the zone plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Belle, do you have any?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think Ms. Cafone did a nice job of illustrating that the application meets the statutory criteria. I am a little concerned, though, as Ms. Newman brought up earlier, within the interior of the building, the parking spaces are only 18 feet where the township requires 19 feet in length. And then the drive aisle is reduced to 24 feet where 25 feet would be required. So I'm a little bit concerned about the safety of that area, just in pulling out and passing cars. So I don't think Ms. Cafone is the appropriate person to talk about traffic safety, but I do think a little bit more testimony on that would be nice.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Ms. Cafone? I guess I have to go back to Mr. Sermont on the engineering for the flow, but is there anything else for Ms. Cafone at this time?
I do not.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like anybody else on board. Thank you, Ms. Cafone.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'll be here if anything comes.
Very nice job.
Mr. Sermont, you heard the questions and the concerns regarding the 18-foot and the turn radius of 24. Is there anything else you could add in your testimony?
Only that the dimensions we provided are quite common for interior parking garages.
Mr. Samant, before you go there, though, I think it goes to also the Fire Bureau's comment in that the north aisle is also 25 feet wide, and it's 25 feet from curb to building. So we're literally 25 feet from curb to building. I know one of the board members earlier, I think it was the chairman, expressed concerns over that, and then we go into the building. So I think we need to make sure that from a safety standpoint, this is a safe condition for circulation as well as emergency services.
Again, I'm very comfortable with dimensioning inside the building, and I need to speak to the fire marshal to discuss the aisle width on the north side of the building.
Right, and while the variances, requested are minimal, it's just the side yard setback. This directly is impacted by that, side yard setback you're proposing. And perhaps the site, is a little, cannot really accommodate, if you're needing safety waivers, basically, perhaps the site can't accommodate what's being proposed.
And I believe again, the safety concern is making the fire marshal comfortable with whether or not that 25-foot drive aisle on the north side of the building is adequate for him.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, perhaps we should go to the architectural testimony, continue, and then I think the board has to weigh whether or not Mr. Sermon and the applicant should go meet with our fire marshal before we act, or in the absence of that, and I would defer to Steve, but maybe the board would just only be willing to grant preliminary with a condition that they meet with the fire marshal and come back for final. So I defer on all those, but I would like to also get the architectural testimony on for the building facade, which I would think it would get them through their entire application. I think this is going to remain an issue, and I think we can maybe digest and speak about that after we've at least heard architectural testimony.
Well, Ms. Newman, you already took the words out of my mouth. It's kind of where I was going anyways, but let's continue with the rest of the testimony and see how it shakes out. I'd also like to hear from the public as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We can at this time swear in Mr. David Feldman, our architect.
Mr. Feldman, do you swear from the testimony you provided before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Can you please provide us your business address for the record?
My name is David Feldman, Principal Architect of Feldman and Feldman Architects, 1670 Route 34, Howell Township, New Jersey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. My phone rang for a second. I didn't hear your qualifications.
Okay. My name is David Feldman. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, as well as about 8 other states across the East Coast. I have a Bachelor of Architecture degree from Temple University, which was obtained in 1984. I've been practicing architecture for 29, almost 30 years, and I've appeared before this board, I believe, as well as numerous other boards throughout the state of New Jersey and other states.
Thank you. We'll accept your credentials, Mr. Feldman.
If I may, would you like me to pull up my drawings that I have, or?
Yes, please, and your sections and your elevations and any renderings you may have as well, please.
Yeah. No. Okay. I'm assuming the board could see the architectural drawings at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So these are the architectural drawings that were prepared by my office. I believe they're dated 2/25/21.
They're marked as A4 on the exhibit list.
Okay, and it consists of 2 sheets. The first sheet being A1, which is architectural elevations. The second sheet, which is indicated as A2, which is a ground floor plan, first floor plan, or second, which is similar to the second floor as well, and then a roof plan. It's basically an elevated two-story office building with parking underneath, as the engineer previously testified to, consisting of 17,000 plus square feet per floor for a total of just under 35,000 square feet in total. I think the main issue regarding the architecturals that was brought up was the offsets or recesses within the facade of the north and south elevation, which we do provide. It doesn't exactly meet your ordinance, where you're not allowed to have a maximum length of 50 feet and a recess of 3 feet. The largest length of wall that we're providing is 56 feet. Okay, so it's 6 feet over what's allowed. And where 10% of the offset is required on a building that would be 29 or 290 linear feet, 29 feet would be required. The minimum or minimum area that we're providing in terms of length is 25 feet, 2 inches. So we do not meet the ordinance as stipulated, where 50 feet and 10% is required. However, there's a reason behind that. And that reason is that it coincides with the structural elements of the building on the ground floor. So where the 56 feet length of building is, basically occurs between the grid line of the 2 column locations. Likewise, where the 25-foot space is, again, it's the grid line of the structure beneath. That grid line was determined based on the parking and how we worked out the parking with the engineer to fit within the building underneath. So again, we would require a waiver requesting 56 feet, a maximum length in turn where 50 is required. And we would also require a waiver allowing us to only have a 25-foot 2-inch length, where 28-foot 9 inches, if we took 10% of the facade, is required. That articulation occurs both on the north and south sides of the building. So we do articulate that, and I'm going to pull up some renderings of the building in a minute. On the east and west, we do meet the ordinance of where the building is 62 feet. We have no more than 42 feet or 42-foot 2 in terms of the wall before we create an offset with regards to the staircase. The other waiver is where you require a 3-foot projection. We're only providing a 2-foot projection on this recess and a 2-foot projection on this bump out. So again, where 3 feet is required, we're requesting 2 feet. And so we would request a variance for that. As far as let me just pull up the rendering. Just bear with me 1 second. So this is a rendering of the proposed building, and you could see here that the recesses that are indicated to be provided on the north and south side of the structure. We're also introducing different colors within the rendering, so that'll also give some delineation to the architectural aesthetics, both horizontally, which are occurring at the recesses, I'm sorry, both vertically, which is occurring at the recesses, and horizontally, horizontal bands that are occurring on the main portion of the building. You could see also the recess or the offset in the facade on the west elevation here, which would also be duplicated on the east end of the structure as well. I don't know if that addresses the concerns. I believe it does. If there's any questions at this point.
Actually, I have a question for Eileen. Eileen, was this pre-marked or should we mark this one?
That is pre-marked. It is A10.
Thank you.
He also provided an aerial view of that as well, which is A11.
Yeah, the aerial view we have right here as well. This being Kent Road and this being Route 9.
Mr. Feldman, can you provide any testimony on what the board could expect to see as far as any utilities and or other mechanical type of equipment that may be hanging on the underside of the first floor and the ceiling of the parking deck, and how that may or may not be visible from the Route 9 or Kent Road?
Yeah, it's our intent to locate the mechanical units up on the roof. So we're really going to limit what we're.
What about plumbing and piping and gas piping and electrical
That's all
piping
gonna,
and light fixtures?
Yeah, that's, well, the light fixtures obviously will be flush mounted to the ceiling. As far as plumbing pipes and things like that, we're actually we're currently providing about a 3 or 4 foot depth of structure. And our intent is to house all of that within that structural depth. So it's not going to be seen from the Route 9 corridor.
If I could summarize what you just said, are you stating that those type of devices and equipment will be running through the structure, not hung from underneath it?
That is correct.
And you're willing to stipulate that on the record and put that in the resolution?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah. Is there any
parking that is under the building parking accessed from the side of it, or is it all from the end like you're showing in your aerial view?
No, there's a thoroughfare. If I bring up the architecturals. So through here, there is access. This being, when I say through here, this being Kent Road, this being Route 9. There's access north to south underneath the building as well. And the engineer could probably show it better on his site plan.
Mr. Feldman, do you have any green components to the building?
We do not at this time, no.
Did you ever consider screening the parking area? If you don't have any side access?
Well, I think the side, and again, I would defer that to the engineer, but I believe the side access is.
No, if you go back to your aerial elevation. I mean, I don't know how the board feels, but for me, we don't have any type of buildings like this where we have an open parking deck under the building. The building that we do have, I believe the only building that I'm aware of that has under building parking is Town Hall, and that is appropriately screened and covered from view. Just asking if anybody else feels the same way, is some type of screening to hide the actual parking functions would be appropriate.
If we were to do that, I would just like to point out to the board that would not have any offsets or projections over the length of the building, because the column line is in a straight line down the length of the building. We would still maintain the projections that we are proposing on the second and third floor, but the first floor would be one continuous line, whether that's a, maybe a 3-foot high wall with some, I wouldn't want to use the word lattice as a screen, but something along those lines. It's a possibility.
I don't think that is something, I don't think we would want something with lattice.
Yeah, no,
Lattice, no, but maybe a horizontal projection with some spacing between it.
I personally don't see the need to hide the cars. And I don't see why the board, I think the keeping it open for the light and the air and the, the breeze through there and underneath is probably nicer.
Yeah.
Somebody driving down Route 9 at, 45, 50 miles an hour, versus somebody that's parking under there and walking and appreciating the light and air coming through is, I think, a nicer scenario.
Mr. Feldman, if I may just ask, would you agree that this is a better design than adding additional parking just to a parking lot area? The cars are actually screened as they're being inside the building?
Yes.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I can just interject here, I think for like safety and security purposes, the quicker you can get underneath that building without having any type of obstructions for either police or fire or EMS, where we have direct access underneath that building 365 or 360, right? 360, 365 days. I think I think it's a better design the way that this is set up now.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree. It would definitely, putting up screening there would definitely prohibit emergency accessibility through that parking lot as opposed to it being, open.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions for Mr. Feldman?
Adam, can I just make one point?
Yes.
I honestly had anticipated some type of perimeter barrier. That's why our parking stalls were limited to 18 feet. But as it's laid out now, without any type of exterior wall, it does allow us to have those parking stalls now to be 19 feet in depth, because the building being 62 feet wide provides us the additional foot on each side.
So are we withdrawing that waiver, Mr. Surratt?
Well, we'd still need the waiver for the 24-foot drive aisle, but we're able to provide the 19-foot parking stall.
Hey, Chet, just to interject though, would the board prefer the 25-foot wide and leave the 18-foot parking spot?
That could be. I mean, we could do it either way. I don't.
Yeah.
It might just
I can
affect the
interject.
dimension on
For
your
me,
stair tower.
For me, I'm going to leave it up to the fire bureau to make that call.
Right.
They're the ones that have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So,
I think it'd be wise to propose the 25-foot and keep it at 18. I think the fire bureau would be satisfied with that.
And I would concur with the chief.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, I know we still have to open to the public, and obviously the board has any deliberation and additional comments. But from the applicant's standpoint, should the board be okay with our proposal this evening, we would agree as a condition of approval to do whatever the fire marshal would be requests, be it the 25-foot or the 18 or 19-foot aisles. Either one would be fine with us, and we would be fine as a condition of approval that be in the record.
Mr. Chairman, to be clear though, I think the Fire Bureau's issue has to do with the north drive aisle, which is 25 feet from the curb and directly abuts the building. I mean, it's pretty specific in their letter. So I think on the drive aisle issue, I would agree with what the chief said, and certainly that I would be comfortable if we deferred to Fire Bureau to review. Where I'm uncomfortable is the Fire Bureau has a very specific comment about access around the north side of this facade because it's 25 feet curb to building. And I think that's the area where I would like them to review that with the fire official. And I don't think it's fair. They will do whatever the fire official wants if we don't know what the fire official wants.
Agreed. So I just figured we would have that conversation, Ms. Newman, after we have the public comment. But thank you for preempting that. Okay.
Mr. Feldman, can you stop sharing your screen so we can get the full board back?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Feldman.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Pfeffer, have you concluded all of your professionals?
Yes, that is it.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public then. It is, give you the time.
8:16.
Okay, it is 8:17. We're gonna leave it open for a minute and a half. If anybody has any comments, please do so. Eileen, can you please re-explain the method of unmuting
Yes.
if they are muted?
If any member of the public wishes to ask questions or comments on this application, please use the raise your hand feature. I'll bring you into the meeting one at a time. You'll be sworn in and you'll have to give your name and address. If you are calling in on the phone, you need to use *9 to raise your hand. And I do have someone with their hand raised. Hold on one second.
That's Mr. Sermont. I see his hand raised.
This
All right,
is
put your hand down. You already spoke.
This is someone from Farmingdale Forever. I'm not sure if you're here for this application. Could you please unmute yourself and give us your video, or I'll put you back into the public.
I'm not here for this. We're not here for this case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the public that would like to speak?
Please use the raise your hand feature and I'll bring you into the meeting.
Okay, Eileen, we've hit that minute and a half mark. Do you see anybody that's raised their hand or has unmuted?
I have no one raising their hand.
Okay, then we will close the public portion of the meeting. Counselor, would you like to summarize, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you heard, this evening's application for a 3-story building, ground floor parking. I believe we provided testimony sufficient to just about all of your concerns. We did request the 2 variances and the several waivers. As far as the vote, right, so there's some concern regarding the fire marshal and the turnout of the 25-foot. You know, we have a few options of how the board would like to deal with it. Again, I know we can, the one I would like the best would be assuming that we could proceed. If the board votes in favor of it, we would agree prior to resolution of approval that we would meet with the fire marshal to make sure that it's acceptable. That would be one option. Another option we could deal with if the board's not amenable to that, would be seeking just the preliminary approval this evening. Either of those two. I mean, obviously we like to have the preliminary and final, but if the board is not amenable to that, we would seek just to have the preliminary approval.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Does the board have any other questions? If none, do we want to take Ms. Newman's advice and grant them preliminary until we see what the Fire Bureau has for additional comments?
Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I think we should clarify is sidewalk on Route 9. I think the applicant's attorney had indicated he was going to get back to us on that.
Yes,
Confirm that they're doing it.
yes, we're doing. Ms. Cafona indicated also in her testimony that we had agreed, but yes, we had no objection to it.
Chairman, the only question I have is, the only concern that we have is this fire lane with the Fire Bureau. So if they approve it, if they say it's okay, we're going to grant the final anyhow. So why don't we just do preliminary and final with the condition of the Fire Bureau be met?
I'll let Ms. Newman answer that, but for me personally, my concern is I don't know how the fire department is going to react. They have a access and width question and concern, and that may completely blow the application apart, and they may have to do some major surgery in order to accommodate what the fire department really needs, because they're not in compliance with the right widths of parking spaces, and the widths of the aisle. So we're accommodating parking spaces and allowing them to go a little bit smaller on the parking spaces to accommodate a 25-foot wide aisle width. So me personally, I really would rather the application be complete and give them final with a complete application.
But why not just put it as part of the condition,
Well,
right?
here's the reason, if I can just chime in. If the board grants preliminary and final site plan approval conditioned on acceptance by the fire department, assume that the fire department does not accept the design and requires changes to the design. You can't amend a final approval. They would have to reapply for amended preliminary. They'd have to pretty much start from scratch. So if the board were to grant preliminary and the fire marshal decides they have to change this, re-angle that, they can come back in for amended preliminary and final. So by doing final tonight, they're locking themselves into that design, which can't be changed.
So let me ask Mr. Sermon a quick question then, and that put me at ease. Mr. Sermon, did I miss it in your testimony? Did you make changes to the plan that the fire marshal just hasn't seen yet?
I'm not sure. We did make 2 changes to the plan, comments that are still noted in his report. That was the addition of the fire hydrant and the modification to the southeast corner of the building to provide easier access at that point.
But nothing in regards to his comment in regards to the access roadway on the north side.
Well, only because he didn't raise it at our meeting. We addressed the comments that he raised at the meeting we had, but he did not bring that up at the meeting. So that's why I said, seeing that in his comments, like I say, the first 2 comments we addressed because he brought them to our attention.
I can just, all the submissions that were submitted to the board do go to the Fire Bureau, and he has had the same comment since November of last year regarding that north side.
Are we up for a
What's the
motion?
board's flavor? Because mine is to grant preliminary.
I'm going to make a motion, Brian, to just grant preliminary at this time, just based upon exactly what you said and what Steve said. I think we need the complete application with fire department. If they change things and we approve it final, there's no going back. So that's my suggestion.
Was that your motion, right?
That's my motion for preliminary only at this time.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Dorado,
Yes.
Mr. Husser,
Yes.
Keith Kudrick,
Yes.
Mr. Leggio,
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Ms. Casper,
Yes.
and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes, and just for the applicant, you saw my son stand next to me. He said, that looks like a nice building.
It is. It's a really nice design. It really is.
Huge improvement of what's currently there.
Yeah.
Good. Future developer, very good. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, I apologize. Give me a second. Let me close some windows here. Next application. Does anybody want to take a 5-minute break? Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene at 8:30.
Okay. The planning board will now take a recess. We'll be back at 8:30.
Okay. We have counselor for case number SP-1012A, Ioso Brothers.
Yes, that's Mr. Sardo. You're muted, Mr. Sardo.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Hi.
This is John Sardo on behalf of the applicant from the law firm of Giordano, Halloran, and Ciesla. I represent Esso Brothers and Patrick Ward. You'll see also he's joined. He's our project engineer. I don't know if we want to promote others at this time, or do you want to do that when the witness will testify?
I can bring them all in now if you tell me who they are.
Sure. You should also have our architect, who is Adam Angelina,
I have him.
or Angelin, sorry.
Okay.
Those are my two witnesses.
Okay.
Also in the audience, I have a representative from the applicant, but we can promote him if we need to.
Perfect.
During the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. May I begin, Mr. Chairman?
Let me just ask a quick technical question.
Sure.
So, Stephen, it appears that from the Environmental Commission review that this applicant has not met with the Environmental Commission, and they're requesting that they meet them. Is that something that we just weigh as part of our review today, or is that part of a checklist and part of even being able to come to us and being a complete application?
Can I defer that question to Laura? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know whether meeting with the EC is a prerequisite. I don't know that. Laura, do you know?
So I don't know that it's a prerequisite, but most applicants we have do meet with the Environmental Commission prior to coming to a hearing. They usually make a presentation and then take their comments back. So, I know that the applications are all relayed to the committees, but typically all applicants appear before the commission before coming to a hearing. We can certainly ask Mr. Husser, because he serves as our liaison, to confirm that my recollection is correct. But, most of our applicants do go there because the Environmental Commission typically has a lot of comments. They want to review the environmental impact statement study and constraints of the property.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't put it better. I know we first saw this applicant on February 10th and had some comments, and that's where we requested some more information. And then we just reviewed it again last month, I believe the 14th, where we asked if they would come in prior to this meeting, and that didn't happen. So,
Okay.
Whether
so
or
the
not,
answer is it's not a prerequisite.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. Counselor?
Yeah, we're certainly not opposed, obviously, to meeting with the Environmental Commission. If that's something that we were supposed to arrange before the meeting, then obviously that was an oversight, but certainly we...
Up to you if you'd like to proceed.
Well, but in fairness, if that's a requirement, I don't see this board acting without you having done that. I mean, the board typically will require it. So while, I think what you're hearing is you can proceed and put the testimony on the record, but I'm not sure that the board's going to be in a position to act if you have not yet met with the Environmental Commission as was requested over a month ago.
Understood. I think, we're prepared to proceed tonight. I think it makes sense for us to use the time to proceed, get testimony on the record. If it's the case that we have to come back subsequently and meet with the Environmental Commission in intervening time, then so be it.
Okay. Thank you. Please proceed.
Just to give a bit of background and just generally, the site is located at 383 Cranberry Road. It has an existing use on there by SO Paving for their contractor storage yard, and it's currently improved and in use. They received a preliminary and final site plan in 2015 for similar office space and other improvements that ultimately didn't get perfected, and the application tonight is a revised site plan that provides for office space, meeting area, and other accessory structures, and significant improvements along the frontage and plantings as well. And that overall, we think this is going to make the site more usable for the applicant, bring it up to date with what their current needs are, and certainly will be an improvement aesthetically and otherwise to the current conditions. So and certainly you'll hear a lot more about those details from Pat Ward, our engineer. So without any further delay, I guess I'd ask Pat to unmute and we can put his credentials on the record.
Okay, Mr. Ward, we're going to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Mr. Ward, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Can you please provide your business address for the record?
Sure. Name is Patrick Ward, W-A-R-D. Business address is 1955 Route 34, Suite 1A, Wall, New Jersey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Pat,
You say
sorry.
what qualifies credentials, please?
Sure. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from Drexel University. I'm a licensed professional engineer and licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. Both licenses are current and valid. Been an engineer for coming up on 8 years and a planner for 6. Been in front of this board as well multiple times.
We'll accept your credentials, Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Pat. And, you know, our intention is to have him do the engineering testimony first. So, Pat, if you could, I guess, can you advise the board the location and the background of the site, and also describe the existing use and current conditions?
Sure. Mr. Urbano, if you don't mind, I'm going to refer to A8, A9, and A10 while I testify. Can we start with the aerial? I believe that's A8.
Sure. Do you want me to share it?
I can, if it's easier.
Yeah, I can do it. That's not a problem.
Okay. So while that's being pulled up, I can get started. We're at 383 Cranberry Road, block 184, lot 24. We have a 3-acre parcel in the SED zone. And basically the summary of the application here is that SO Brothers Paving currently owns and operates their business from the property. All paving operations emanate from the property today, and they have an off-site office suite elsewhere that they rent. This application, they're seeking site plan approval to improve the property substantially from the current condition with a new headquarters building for their entire business operation, make this property their long-term home here in Howell. So what you have in front of you is an aerial exhibit prepared by our office, shows where we are on Cranberry Road. Just for point of reference, the site is about a quarter mile east of the Cranberry Yellowbrook Road intersection. What you could see to the, I'll describe our surrounding uses. To the northwest is the rear entrance to the George Harms construction yard. To the north is the Equestra development. We're across the street, and to the east is the rear entrance to the second phase of Equestra. To our east, immediately to our east is the Monmouth County Highway Department yard. To the west is another similar industrial commercial contractor use. It's a multi-tenant facility where they have parking in the rear. And then to the south of us is a multi-tenant, I'll call it a contractor construction yard. A lot going on back there, but multiple tenants, much larger property, about 22 acres. Like I mentioned, all these uses are generally in the vein of construction or light industrial, except for the Equestra development, the second phase across the street. As you can see on, these are the tax map lines that are superimposed on this aerial that we've created. Each of the lots in Equestra have their own, or each of the homes have their own lots, physical properties, and the development is surrounded by open space or a perimeter buffer, and you could see that on the tax map lines. That phase of Equestra was approved with a 100-foot perimeter buffer along this Cranberry Road frontage. Just a bit of background on that. In terms of zoning of the properties, our property is the SED zone, but we have some zone boundaries in our immediate vicinity and kind of that run along our property lines. So Equestra is in the PRC zone, the Planned Retirement Community Zone, which is a residential zone. And the Monmouth County yard to the east is in the ARE6 zone, the Agricultural Real Estate 6 zone. So those are both residential zones, although the Monmouth County yard is not a residential use. So the site today, and Mr. Bono, if you could bring up A10, which is a comparison of the existing streetscape and what we're proposing. The site today, for those that have been by it, is nearly entirely impervious. It's a combination of pavement patches and compacted gravel. We have 2 curb cuts. Excuse me, I'm not too far from the train tracks. Hopefully everyone didn't hear that. There are 2 curb cuts or access points from Cranberry Road to the property. Somewhat recently, Cranberry Road was improved with sanitary sewer and widened with new curbs. So we do have 2 current curb cuts that we want to maintain in effect for the development. We have, and as Mr. Bono is pulling that up, you'll see this a little bit clearer. Really, there's 2 sections of our property today. The front is a area along Cranberry where all the employees of SO park, and really an undelineated parking area that the employees just park where they can. And then there's a chain link fence with a bit of a screening fabric on it that delineates the front parking to the rear yard. And I say yard as in like the contractor's yard. The fence sits about 60 feet away from Cranberry Road. And like I said, the applicant uses the area in front of the fence for employee vehicle parking. Is that not coming up, Ms. Rano?
I think this is the one. Hold on one second.
It's okay. I'll keep going. It's okay. I just wanted to show the streetscape. So behind the fence is where we have some real site improvements that exist today. We have a couple of structures. There's an existing masonry garage. There are some, there we go. And as you can see on this, you see that black fence. It's a chain link fence with some fabric on it to provide somewhat of a visual screen, but you can see what the property looks like from the streetscape today. If you could zoom in a touch, Mr. Bono, there should be some landscaping that pops up on the lower image. And if not, I can share, I might have to share mine because there is supposed to be landscaping on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important, Pat.
Yeah, no, would you mind if I share?
No, go right ahead.
Okay. Sorry for
I know Miss Sparrow is probably like wondering where all the landscaping went.
Okay, we'll make sure we show it. I just want to get it up here.
And just so that I understand, the SO brothers are presently occupying this property now and using it for their operations.
Correct.
Okay.
It's yes, Mr. Chair. It's all of their field operations, we'll say, right? All their paving operations, all their trucks and equipment emanate from this property. The only thing that this property is missing is enough office space for their administrative staff, which their field staff, greatly outnumbers their administrative staff. So let me just screen share. Hopefully, John, can you confirm that this now shows the landscaping?
Yeah, that's much better, Pat. Thanks.
I don't know what's going on there. Okay. So as I was describing.
We lost it.
Do we have it back?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. As I was describing the existing conditions, what you can see here is the black fabric on the fence, and then the structures behind the fence. We have a somewhat tall garage that they use for maintenance behind the fence. There are some construction trailers that are more or less temporary trailers that have been an attempt to make them semi-permanent. And there is a Quonset hut, this arched building. I call it a Quonset hut, but more or less like an arched garage towards the rear. And then behind that is another canopy that was added onto it that extends pretty close to the rear property line. There is no delineated parking area, as you can see. This is a bit of a mishmash out front, but this is where the employees currently park. And then along the southern and rear sides of the yard, there are enclosed storage containers, which you can't necessarily see on this photo, but we'll show you on the proposed site plan of where they'll end up. There are along the rear material storage bins and other items, miscellaneous items.
Yeah,
So,
Pat, I mean, I think it's important to point out that, I think this exhibit illustrates that we're really trying to organize at least from the streetscape, we're trying to organize and present a clean new development that enhances the landscaping and buffering along the right of way, provides separation, and then you use the structures, you know, the building itself, and then the fencing that's proposed to provide permanent and kind of a more aesthetic screen than what currently exists today, correct?
Right. So what I'm attempting to do is just kind of establish what the site looks like today, and where it's going and why the site is designed the way it is. And the intent there is to really shield a lot of the operations from the public view shed. You'll see that as we describe the site layout, why the building is designed the way it is, why it's sited the way it is, and how we've upgraded certain things like the fencing, like the landscaping.
Hey, Pat, could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, you know, and I know it was a hot ticket item for the Environmental Commission. You know, we're seeing proposed maintenance building, proposed garage, you know, outdoor storage bins, and these guys are in the game of asphalting. Why wouldn't they pave this entire property and leave gravel surficial for the potential of construction leak, asphalt leak into impervious surface? I mean, into pervious surface.
Good question. So we're proposing to pave, and you know, right now it's a mishmash of pavement sections and gravel. Today, we're proposing to pave, and let me see if I can pull up our color rendering to really do this some justice here as we describe it. We're proposing to pave most of the site and with asphalt. The rear section of the property is proposed to be gravel. You know, from an ordinance standpoint, the gravel and the asphalt count the same for lot coverage. Here's the color rendering of the site. You can see I'm zooming in a touch. The line right in front of the garage here is the edge of the asphalt and the gravel. You know, the applicant, they're pavers, so that's the business. If the board, you know, had no issue with us paving all limits of new coverage here as proposed, I don't think they'd have any issue with that. I think the goal was to try to provide some areas where, you know, the stormwater can infiltrate. What happens here, Mr. Husser, is that the site, and I'll get into this with some of the engineering testimony, the site slopes from north to south, from Cranberry Road towards the rear, ultimately goes through that yard to the south of us, overland, and it takes, you know, over 1,000 feet and eventually gets to a creek to the east. You know, we wouldn't be averse to paving the whole thing. But we wanted to provide some areas where there wouldn't be, you know, necessarily, especially in the southeast corner, where there wouldn't necessarily be truck maneuvering down there to where it wouldn't be compacted gravel. The southwest. The southeast area where we'll have some material bins, which I'll describe in a moment. You know, that will have some trucks traversing it, so it will ultimately be a compacted gravel bed, limiting its infiltration capability. But that was the intent. You know, again, I think it was an oversight not to meet with the Environmental Commission. We'd be happy to do it and discuss something like that. But in either event, it would count as lot coverage. So I don't think the applicants would have an issue with that.
Thanks.
Yep. Back to the streetscape. Just to wrap up the existing improvements here. The applicant's proposing to remove everything ultimately from the property in terms of structures, fences and the like, except for the enclosed storage containers, which they're proposing to relocate, which I'll describe in a moment. So back to the site rendering here. And as I said previously, the applicant intends to upgrade the site and building so it meets the needs of the business and then to improve the functionality and the aesthetics of the site at the same time. Before I describe what's being proposed, we'd like to note that the applicant was granted site plan approval by this board in 2015 for a different plan with new buildings and other site improvements. We have modified that original proposal. The buildings have changed. The layouts have changed to meet SO's current needs. So the buildings and layouts, we're proposing the following new structures, and I'll use this nomenclature throughout the presentation. The main building, and that's right here in the center. So wider building here. This will contain the administrative offices on the west side and maintenance bays on the east side, separated by an enclosed patio area. The architect will describe function of each of those spaces, including that patio area and why it's designed the way it is. We're proposing truck parking along the east side of the property. There's currently truck parking already on the west where it's striped and actually paved. We're proposing to improve that with a concrete pad and actually cover it with canopies. So on the west and on the east side, we're proposing open wall truck canopies. They're 31 feet in depth and 151 feet wide, as drawn on the plan. We're proposing a new rear maintenance garage, and I'll describe the phasing of that later on, but that'll replace that Quonset hut, that arched garage that was on the streetscape as part of phase 2 of the project. And we're proposing 5 new material storage bins. Right now, there are material storage bins in the southeast corner. Again, it's a bit of a mishmash today. We're proposing to clean that up and have concrete masonry or concrete block walled storage bins that are 8 feet in height, meant to contain material that SO uses for paving operations, such as excess gravel, sand, and whatever other materials they need. We're proposing to relocate the 4 enclosed storage containers. Right now, they're on the east property line, and they're going to be moved to the southwest corner of the property. And then a future trash enclosure, which will be built as part of phase 2, will be located in the southwest corner. In terms of layout design, the applicant's team carefully considered both function, aesthetics, and the public view shed. So first, the township master plan calls for Cranberry Road to be 60-foot wide right-of-way. Today, it's 55. As such, the applicant happily agrees to provide a necessary 5-foot dedication along the frontage to achieve this width. As you could see, the driveway locations are modified slightly to tie into the existing curb on Cranberry. The west drive will be entrance only, and the east drive will be exit only. The employee parking out front will be completely redone. We'll have new pavement, new curb, striping, and landscaping in front of the main building, along with fences, solid fences, and solid gates, separating the front from the rear yard. The main building will be set back about 85 feet from the new dedication line along Cranberry. Like I said, a decorative and solid vinyl fence is proposed on either side of the building, the west side and the east side. The driveways to the rear yard will be separated from the front parking lot with solid sliding gates as well. And the goal here is to utilize the fencing, the gates, and that front facade of the building to visually screen the rear yard and its contents from the public view shed. The applicant will provide Knox boxes at both gates for emergency vehicle access to the rear. And behind the gates, we're proposing additional passenger vehicle spaces on the west side of the building. These are for senior level staff, ownership and the like. And again, just on the west side of the main building. And this is a very typical contractor yard, albeit substantially improved from today's condition. The majority of the yard will be paved as shown, with some gravel areas at the rear where pavement is not necessary. We have 24 oversized spaces on the west and the east side, as mentioned before, for work truck parking under canopies. At the center of the yard, we're proposing tractor trailer parking that'll be sized and striped to accommodate 3 truck and trailers as needed. Now, the applicant's equipment and trailers is usually on the road and goes from job to job, but sometimes between jobs or on the weekends, those trailers need to be stored on site. And we're proposing to store them centrally behind the main building so they're out of the public view shed. The circulation of the rear yard will mimic the front. We'll have one-way circulation coming in from the west, and it'll wrap around the building and exit on the east. With enough room around the trailer parking on both sides, the north and south side of the trailer parking, for company vehicles and trucks to maneuver, as well as emergency and refuse vehicles. In terms of stormwater management, the proposal seeks to reduce the existing coverage on site by about 12,000 square feet. Right now, elevations on site generally slope from front to back, and we're seeking to mimic that condition. By virtue of reducing the amount of coverage on site, we're therefore reducing the amount of runoff generated by the project, improving the existing conditions. This stormwater analysis that we submitted is compliant with both township standards and state standards for development. In terms of landscaping and lighting, you can see here on the color rendering where our landscaping is going to be proposed. We feel we're proposing appropriate landscaping around the main building and within the front parking area. I'm zoom in on this. See? Go too far. There we go. There will be a series of foundation plantings on the north, west, and south side of the main building with some columnar evergreen trees mixed in along the front facade. The rear maintenance building will have a series of columnar evergreen trees along its rear to enhance the existing vegetated area to the south of our site. And along Cranberry Road, we're proposing 6 street trees and a series of evergreen trees between them. A series of medium-sized shrubs are proposed along the edge of the parking stalls, as you can see here, attempt to screen headlights. And the center landscaped area along Cranberry Road will be bermed up about 3 feet at a maximum above grade. Other ground cover like juniper, lily turf, and some other river rock areas are proposed as well to enhance the parking area and driveways. The landscape plan was developed with our neighbors in mind. I'm just going to pull up our aerial again. And notably, our neighbors to the north, the Enclosure development, to the north across Cranberry. Now we understand, and I'll get into this when I hit my planning testimony. We understand we are not proposing a buffer as defined in the ordinance, and we're seeking to enhance with our landscaping Enclosure's existing 100-foot perimeter buffer. We feel that the berm, the shrubs, and the additional trees along the frontage will screen any vehicle headlights and portions of the buildings facing Cranberry, and enhance the aesthetics of the property from any northern view shed. In terms of lighting, we're proposing 4 light poles and 1 building mounted lighting fixture at the front parking lot. In the rear yard, we're proposing a series of building mounted lighting fixtures with the goal of illuminating the critical areas of the yard, the parking areas, the pavement immediately surrounding the buildings, the truck canopies, and the refuse area. Now, I know there are design waivers associated with that, and I will get to those. I'll go through all the variances and design waivers at once, and I'll describe more as to why we're proposing the lighting design as it is proposed on the plans. I just want to briefly compare our proposal for this site development with the 2015 approval by the planning board. I think it's important to describe some of the changes from the 2015 approval briefly and how we think this application has improved upon that prior approval. For starters, the main building is larger, but it is proposed to be set back 20 more feet from Cranberry than originally approved. And when I say it's larger, it's wider, wider along the Cranberry Road frontage. In addition, the existing masonry garage that was approved to remain. And based on the streetscape, that's this one that you can see, it's clearly above that black fence. That was proposed to remain as part of the original approval. We're taking that down and adding maintenance bays on the east side of the main building, which will be an aesthetic improvement over the current garage. Smaller items like the refuse.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Those maintenance bays, it appears that they are only accessible from the rear of the property. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct. All the doors are facing to the south, to the rear.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Smaller items like the refuse enclosure was approved to be much closer to Cranberry Road, and we're proposing it in the southwest corner behind the parking and canopies rather than in front of it, as was previously approved. The enclosed storage containers that are being relocated were originally approved along the east property line closer to the street, and we're relocating them to the very rear of the property, ultimately hidden from view behind the main building, the gates, and the land. The biggest difference will be the streetscape along the front of the property. We're proposing more trees and shrubs to not only enhance the building aesthetics, but also to enhance the existing screening offered by the perimeter buffer at Enclosure. Our site layout is such that the improvements in the rear yard are hidden from public view shed. And we feel that these changes from the 2015 proposal are improvements in every sense of the word and provide a much more aesthetically pleasing streetscape along Cranberry Road. Now I'll just briefly describe the phasing, which as originally submitted, we had 3 phases, but we've now condensed that to 2, which makes it a little bit simpler. Phase 1 will be nearly all site improvements except for the removal of that arched Quonset hut. And I'm going to pull back up A10, which is the streetscape. That's this arched building in the back. That will remain as part of phase 1, but ultimately with phase 2, that will be removed. All other building structures, utilities, and landscaping, except for those rear evergreens all the way at the back of the property, are to be installed as part of phase 1. Just to the east of that Quonset hut is an existing dumpster pad. That's to remain as part of phase 1. And ultimately, when that building comes down, the trash enclosure will be reconstructed and relocated to where it's shown on this exhibit in front of you. And then, as I mentioned, phase 2 is focused on the rear maintenance building. In the next handful of years, the applicant will remove that hut, the Quonset hut, the existing dumpster area, and we'll reconstruct this new centrally located along the rear maintenance garage. In terms of parking overall, we're providing 50 spaces on site, which includes 2 ADA spaces. This meets and exceeds the ordinance requirement for parking on site. In terms of signage, this is best to see on the streetscape. Well, I may have misspoke on that. Well, you can see the sign there. We're proposing 2 signs on the front face of the building. One at the center of the facade is a 8-foot by 19-foot facade sign, as shown on the architectural plans. This sign will be the SO company logo. The sign will be uplit by low voltage lighting at the ground and not backlit. We feel that this lighting arrangement will have a softer impact to the public rather than a backlit sign. And then on the front door of the office part of the building, we're proposing a 30-inch by 24-inch door sign, which will be incorporated into the glass door as either a decal or etching. We included this sign as out of an abundance of caution, knowing now that it is requires a variance for being a second sign. We feel these types of door signs are typical of commercial businesses, particularly ones with those glass doors at the front and end. And finally, we're proposing, and you can see it on here behind the trees, we're proposing a 30-foot tall flagpole at the northwest corner of the main building within a landscaped island.
That will be lit, and that will be lit at night?
That's a great question, Mr. Chair.
It needs to be lit at night.
Client. Excuse me, say it again?
It needs to be lit properly.
We will happily light it properly if approved. The applicant, the owner of the company, Tom Esso, he was pretty adamant about us proposing that because he always likes to fly the American flag on his properties. So we included that as part of the site plan. And we know that requires a design waiver as well. But again, he plans on flying the Stars and Stripes.
You have my vote on the approval of the flag.
Pending adequate lighting.
As bright as Miss Newman permits.
Yes. No, okay. I agree with you on there. And that concludes my engineering testimony. Like I mentioned, once we get through the architectural testimony, I'll come back on and talk about all the variances and design waivers and then the justifications for that.
Mr. Wood, do you agree to comply with the comments in our technical engineering review?
No issues with any of your comments, Ms. Newman, or any of the board professional comments. Happy to agree to make those changes.
Why do we, just out of curiosity, Ms. Newman, I guess it's bugging me a little bit. Why is there a variance needed to put a flag up? You're muted.
Sorry, it's not a variance, it's a design waiver, and it's just that flags are a prohibited sign in all areas of the township. So,
The United States flag is a prohibited flag.
well, it doesn't state the United States flag, it says flags in general. So I think as
Okay.
opposed to specifying type of flag, because sometimes that also gets in trouble or could be discriminatory. So I think the town's approach was just to prohibit them in
Yeah.
general.
Could I make a suggestion to Councilwoman Richmond that may be amended? We should never,
I will-
ever have anything that restricts us flying the US flag.
Well, again,
Chairman,
I think it's
I'm sorry,
important-
Lola.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
No,
it's
go ahead.
flags in general. So it doesn't say that the American flag is prohibited. It's that flags are. So
No, I get that, and I understand the reason why we prohibit flags. I just think that we should have it amended to say that the US flag is not part of that
Like-
prohibition.
Like an exception,
Right.
Chairman, right? With the exception of, yeah, I will write a note and I'll bring it to the manager's attention, and then hopefully we can discuss it with the full governing body. I'm
Thank
with
you.
you on that. You're welcome.
Mr. Sardo, perhaps you could advance to the architectural testimony?
You're muted, John.
Patrick, can you take down your exhibit unless he needs it?
I will stop sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize. I thought there might be questions from the board additionally, or if there was questions from anyone else. So, but yeah, we'll obviously Patrick's available for any follow-up engineering questions, and we'll call him later for planning. But my next witness would be Adam Anslin to talk about the architectural plans.
Okay. Mr. Anslin, can you unmute your microphone? Okay, can you please raise your right hand, sir? Mr. Anslin, do you swear from the testimony you provide before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
And can you please give us your business address for the record?
Yes, 904 Prospect Avenue, Spring Lake Heights, New Jersey.
Thank you very much.
And would you mind stating your credentials for the record so the board can qualify you as an expert?
Sure. My name is Adam Anslin. I'm the principal architect of Anslin Architectural, and I have developed preliminary design plans for the Easter Brother buildings and the structures within this proposed application. I have a Bachelor of Science in Architecture and a Master's of Architecture from the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. I have been practicing architecture for more than 20 years, and I'm currently a licensed architect in New Jersey since 2009.
Thank you. We'll accept your credentials.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if you would you, well, I guess, could we bring up A4, which I believe is the architectural plans?
Sure.
Thank you. I'll just ask you when those do come up, if you could walk the board through and describe your floor plan and elevations.
Absolutely.
Gotta give me a minute. I think I have the wrong plans. One second.
Adam, do you have them available to share?
I can share if that is okay as well.
You can.
Yes, please.
Let me see here.
All right.
Confirm you can see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
You might want to just zoom in a little bit,
Sure,
Adam.
I will. I'll start like that. Is that better?
Fine.
All right, great.
Right. Okay, great. So again, I prepared all these exhibits myself, and the information related to the Esser Brothers buildings and structures that you'll find, and I'll explain in this proposed application. So all the structures that I'll describe on this site will be utilized by the applicant. And again, the proposed application here includes several building structures with the primary focus to improve the company's operations and also to provide an enhanced aesthetic and attractive front facade along Cranberry Road. The building, set back about 85 feet, as Pat had described from Cranberry Road, was developed to also shield the yard operations that are occurring at the site. I'll go ahead and describe a little bit about each building that is on the site. In the front aspect, in the front portion of the building, there's an office or admin portion of the building, and I'll zoom in slightly, which will be this area here towards the right of the image. This plan is flipped, but this is the front door of the building. Again, this office, it's an office building, has multiple offices, restrooms, a conference room, and it's being used for general business operations, whether it's staff meetings or just general accounting and scheduling for business functions. The office has a front door that is along Cranberry Road, which is at the top, which you will also see down below here, the front door of the building. It provides additional yard or access doors to the rear yard at the back of the building and into the covered canopy area or the covered area off to the side of the building for staff meetings that I'll describe a little bit further again. On the other side of this building and connected to it is the maintenance portion of the building. This maintenance portion of the building contains, let me advance here to the next screen. The maintenance portion of the building contains 3 garage bays with the primary function of servicing the existing fleet of vehicles that is operated by ESO paving guys. So the building again has the vehicular doors located on the rear of the building on the yard side of the building, again to also keep it away from the Cranberry Road. And again, in between this building, which is the maintenance building, and the office building is a connection component, which you'll see here on the back side, and on the front side is a covered exterior area with the aesthetics that match the rest of the building. And the primary function of that space is for gathering of staff members to discuss ongoing projects and project safety and operations. As you work your way back on the rear portion of the site and the sides, this is a representation of the rear maintenance building. This again will service vehicles for their existing fleet of equipment for maintenance functions. Again, this is in a later stage of the construction, but again, it's a 3-bay maintenance garage. The aesthetics of this building will match the front building, which I'll describe a little bit later. The only difference is the lower portion of this wall will be just plain concrete versus some of the stone.
I'm good, thank you.
Treatments on the other front building. The other building or the other structures that flank the sides of the property are canopy structures. They are covering existing equipment, and they house about 12, but they do house 12. Oops, sorry, they house 12 vehicles, and they're again on each side of the property. I'm going to go back to the main building, which is along Cranberry, which is the office building and the maintenance building. Again, we have incorporated several design features per the township standards, and I think we've even gone above and beyond and included even more features than are required by the design standards. And just to name a few, we've incorporated a masonry sort of plinth at the bottom of the building, which runs all along the building, including it's tying into vertical canopy corners or vertical stone veneer corners And you can see that both on the admin building at sort of the front entry door, as well as the side of the, or each corner, I should say, of the maintenance building itself. Additionally, we've incorporated a canopy projection off the front at the front door with translucent glass along the front of the building. And some of the main, I would say, materials of this building, again, along with the stone veneer along the bottom, would be a nice vertical metal panel system along the building, and also a standing seam metal roof, as you'll see in this graphic. Additionally, at the maintenance building, we have incorporated a few other features, the cupola features that are above two of the maintenance bays on the building, on the maintenance building, add some nice touches to this building. Again, the overall idea here, and I think, can I also just again reiterate with the other document here? Let me see if I can go back to the view. Again, I'm just going to go back. Is it okay if I go back to reiterate this view a little bit? Again, the idea with this view is, again, to provide a better overall aesthetic to the existing look of this facility and the streetscape. At the same time, provide a shield and almost a layering effect with both the landscaping, the berm that we can talk about a little bit, as well as the building facade, that almost the entire facade now is sort of covering up the back portion of this yard, and really trying to shield as much of the operations that are ongoing back there as much as possible.
Thanks, Adam. So you're in essence, we don't meet the buffering requirements, but you're trying to use the facade of the building and the way it's laid out and designed to really screen the activities that are occurring in the rear yard from the right of way.
That's correct.
Yeah. That's the only questions really that I've had for him, and certainly if the professionals or the board members have questions, I invite you to ask.
Ms. Newman asked the last applicant if they were incorporating any green building elements. Could you provide any testimony on any green building elements that you may be proposing?
Currently, we have not provided or incorporated any green building elements at the moment, no.
I see solar panels on your roof sections.
You are right. There are solar panels that are proposed. I'll go back to that. That is on the rear portion of the building. I'll show the roof plan. There are some solar panels, you're right, that are proposed on the back side of the maintenance building and the office building.
Are any solar panels proposed for the canopies that the trucks will be parking under?
They currently have not been proposed, but it is, we could absolutely discuss that with the applicant to see if they'd be willing to do that.
Thank you. Does anybody else from the board have any comments or questions? Seeing none. Counselor?
So at this point, that concludes testimony from our architect, but we do still have planning testimony to put on. So I would recall Mr. Ward.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Please qualify him as a planner, please.
Well, I think we did that at the outset, although we're happy to, I don't know if.
Let's just do it for the record, just to be safe.
Sure.
Please.
Absolutely.
So I'm a licensed professional planner by examination in the state of New Jersey, active valid license. Testified in front of this board as a professional planner. And have 6 years of licensure history.
Thank you. We'll accept your credentials.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I'll do is I will bring back, if I can here, my screen.
Yeah, we have a number of variances and waivers, many of which were previously granted the 2015 application. But we're going to go through each and every one of those again here, of course, and describe how how they've changed or how they deviate from the ordinance requirements.
Yeah, so what I'll do to start is describe the variances and then go into the waivers, and then I'll finish up with positive and negative criteria. So in terms of variances, first we're seeking a variance for impervious coverage. Existing, we have 98.7% impervious, and we're proposing 87.9%. That's a deviation from what the plans indicate. In preparation for this meeting, we were fine-tune the numbers and realized that we actually overcounted. So we're proposing 87.9% impervious, where 70% is the maximum. Like I said early on in my engineering testimony, this is an improvement of nearly 12,000 square feet over existing. And just for reference sake, the 2015 approval was for 84.4% and impervious, where they actually did not provide a 5-foot dedication. So their lot area was a little bit larger. So the numbers are pretty close to the 2015 approval in terms of impervious total square footage. The accessory building setbacks, as required by the ordinance, is 2 times the height. For the canopies along the west and the east side, we're proposing a 4-foot setback where 33 feet is required based on a 16.5-foot height. For the rear garage down at the south side of the property, we're proposing a 15-foot setback where 38 feet is required based on the 19-foot height. And then recall that in the original 2015 approval, this west canopy that was approved had a 2.5-foot setback. So we're proposing a slightly larger setback than what was originally approved. And the canopy design hasn't changed. It has the same height and aesthetic, particularly from the front. And then due to the fully developed nature and use of the neighboring parcels, so on the west side, we have this industrial commercial use with multiple tenants. And then on the east side, we have the Monmouth County Yard. We feel that these are appropriate setback requests. The canopies are open walled, so they have less mass than a normal walled structure. And the setback for the rear garage is similar. And that's why I have the aerial exhibit up. We have a variety of construction industrial uses on the property to our south. And there's an existing tree line that you could see on this aerial just south of our property. From a functionality standpoint, pushing this rear building 38 feet into the yard or away from the rear line would impact the circulation and use and functionality of the yard unnecessarily. The space behind the building would be, in effect, dead space or result in random storage and collection of outdoor materials, which can cause other problems. We're seeking to offset this variance request with a series of columnar evergreen plantings, which will enhance that existing tree line south. Another variance is the maximum number of signs. We are technically proposing 2, where 1 is the maximum. As stated previously, this is for that front facade sign and the door sign. The door sign is shown on the plans out of an abundance of caution, and the applicant understands that this will need a variance. It's a small, unobtrusive sign that is common on commercial businesses, especially ones with glass front doors. We feel that due to the size and nature of the second sign, this is an appropriate variance request as well. One thing that was noted in the review letters is the outdoor storage of materials and how it must be screened. We believe we are screening any outdoor storage areas in the rear yard. We do have the equipment area in the southeast corner of the property, and there's also a comment in the technical review meeting about the relocated storage containers. We feel that by virtue of proposing the solid screen along the front of the property with the building, the solid fence, and the solid gates, we're providing that screening. The remainder of the yard is enclosed with a chain link fence that's to remain. So we feel we meet the intent of this ordinance requirement, and a variance may not be required. However, should the board and its professionals disagree, we will seek the necessary relief as part of this approval. Next is the buffer, the perimeter buffer. As mentioned in the board professionals review letters, we are not providing or proposing the 50-foot perimeter buffer as required in the ordinance. We note that there are the 4 ways to provide the buffer as prescribed in the ordinance, and we do not meet that criteria. Due to the ARE 6 zoning of the parcel to our east, which is the Monmouth County Yard, and the PRC zoning and the existing residential use of the Enclosure development to our north, the buffer is required along our property frontage and along the east property line. First, I'll discuss the required buffer along the east property line between our project and the Monmouth County Highway. So as you can see on the aerials, the county yard is fully improved. As you go further south on that property, you'll see that the structures are built closer and closer to our shared property line, like their own maintenance building and their own storage bins. You can see in their southwest corner. We are proposing more landscaping along the front half of our property along this line to be consistent with their green space at the northwest corner of their property. We feel that considering the existing use of the property to the east and the low likelihood of that facility being redeveloped with a residential use since it's in Monmouth County government hands, that the buffer variance request along the east is appropriate. Next, I'll turn our attention to the required buffer along Cranberry Road. Today, our frontage is gravel pavement right up to the curb line of Cranberry Road. Effectively, it's a negative buffer today. 2015 approval had less landscaping than we're proposing now, and the site improvements like the parking lot and buildings were approved to be closer to Cranberry than what we're proposing today. As I mentioned throughout my testimony, the applicant is seeking to modernize, upgrade, and improve their facility to meet their business's needs. SO wants to stay in Howell Township and be proud of their facility and wants it to look attractive from the public view shed. At the same time, the SO team wants to be considerate of our neighbors in Equestra across the street. Much of the site design and layout, as we ran through before, contemplates minimizing impact to Equestra visually. This includes the addition of street trees and evergreens along Cranberry, the headlight screening along the parking stalls, the berming of the landscape island at the center of the frontage, and arranging the rear of the site in such a manner that typical site amenities and equipment are screened from public view by the aforementioned landscaping, fencing, and the new main building. Overhead doors on the main building are located at the rear of the building. Like I said, SO wants this to be a visually appealing property as you drive by it on Cranberry Road. I think we've achieved that while still allowing the site to function as a paving company headquarters that's permitted in the zone. But starting at the northeast corner of our site, I'll describe in more detail what we're proposing in an effort to enhance the public view shed of the site. You can see on the aerial here that our northeast corner is where we are closest to the nearest Equestra parcel. And as you move west in Equestra, the properties get further and further away from Cranberry Road. That's just by virtue of how that site is arranged. Based on the Equestra approval, that development was approved with a minimum 100-foot perimeter buffer, as shown on the tax map and aerial exhibit in front of you. We're effectively seeking to continue the streetscape on the adjacent county parcel, which has street trees and evergreen trees, west onto our property. We're proposing a street tree and 2 decorative shade trees and shrubs to screen the 5 spaces on the east side of the exit drive. The central landscaped area along our frontage seeks to achieve the same result. Provide a visual screen along the frontage to enhance the perimeter buffer at Equestra. This area in front will be bermed up about 3 feet at its highest and will contain a mix of plantings, street trees, evergreens, and shrubs, all meant to minimize visual impact to the north. The northwest corner is the same as the northeast corner, a variety of plantings meant to enhance the streetscape of this property and minimize visual impact to the north. As you can see on the aerial, the nearest portion of our parking lot out front to the nearest corner of an Equestra lot is about 190 feet as the crow flies. And this we feel is a good distance in lieu of providing that 50-foot buffer. As I mentioned before, we're also proposing a series of plantings around the main building in an effort to enhance the front facade. And a couple other points worth mentioning about this buffer variance request. While we're trying to more or less hide the rear yard from the public view shed, the yard as a whole is getting smaller based on this proposal. The existing fence along the front of the property is about 60 feet from the Cranberry Road right-of-way, whereas our new decorative solid fencing gate is about 90 feet from the right-of-way. So we're effectively reducing the usable portion of SO's yard by almost 1/4 of an acre with this proposal. We feel this is important to consider and supports how much this applicant is striving to improve their headquarters aesthetically while also not jeopardizing their operations too much as they exist today. We feel the timing of the seasons is important here too. One of the counter arguments to, say an existing stand of vegetation or trees, like the 100-foot perimeter around Equestria, is that what happens in the cold season? Well, that logic with the seasons can be applied to this paving company. When the cold season comes, paving business slows down significantly.
So, Mr. Ward.
Yes.
If I could just interject for you, I like to ask my professionals a couple of questions. So, Sherry. Steve, can you swear Sherry in, please?
Patrick, can you take the screen share down so I can see?
Yep.
Thank you so much. Okay, where's Sherry? There she is. Sherry. Sherry, do you swear from the testimony you provided before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much.
And also swear in, where's our planner tonight? Ms. Bell, thank you.
Christine, yeah, thank you. Do you swear from the testimony you provided before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much.
Between the two of you, I see a significant amount of landscaping added to this project. In your opinions, where are you guys sitting with the positive and negative criteria for these variances?
Well, I did work back and forth with Mr. Ward's office. They were, they did, anything I asked. So I did have them add a few additional items. We added, if you see by the parking.
So do you feel that it's adequate? It's adequate to provide an appropriate buffer to the Equestria?
Yeah, I mean, they went, I think, they did actually, they pulled it back. I don't know if you remember the last plan, the plantings were in the right of way. Now they're on their own property. So yeah, I mean, it's a decent buffer for the space that they have. I mean, it's certainly much more than is currently there.
So would you say, in your opinion, it's been positive, not negative?
Yes, definitely. It'll be a positive change for that area for sure.
Right. I think it's a significant improvement over what is what's there and what was previously approved.
Thank you. Right. Thank you. Does anybody from the board have any questions or comments about the positive and negative criteria that the professionals have offered?
Great improvement.
Anybody else got any comments? Okay, Mr. Ward, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to go through the design waivers, Mr. Chair.
Do we need Ms. Newman to go through the design waivers?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I believe, although not directly touched upon, these have been put on by the engineer when he went through his engineering testimony. The design waivers have to do with light intensity, with landscaping around the trash enclosure, the driveway width. In this particular application, it exceeds 4 feet, which, given the traffic that's there, I think is appropriate. It has to do with no perimeter curbing, and again, given how this site is used with the truck traffic, I think that is appropriate to ensure proper circulation. The parking spaces fronting the principal building do not have curb ramps every 65 feet. Again, we saw the entries to the entry and exit to the site. I think,
and we did have bollards. I think I saw on the plans we've got the bollards where we're facing the building.
Where parking abuts the building. That is correct. A loading space is not provided, again, adjacent to the building. But again, I think we heard how the operations are and how this site is utilized. No loading located in the required buffer. I think we've heard pretty extensive testimony as it relates to the buffer along Cranberry Road and how this is more of an enhancement. Parking spaces, again, the 19 feet in length is required. They have 18 feet proposed, but again, that's to the front of the bollard. They actually dimension 19 feet, but where we interact with the bollard, it's 18 feet. I don't have an issue with that. The next issue deals with the planting of trees and shrubs in the parking area. And again, I think we've seen the landscaping plan. We've heard from Sherry that she believes that this is an improvement over what was previously proposed as well as what was previously approved. We talk about screening along the refuse and dumpster area. Again, I think given its location, this is what's driving that relief. There is no sidewalk along Cranberry Road. And again, given the nature of this roadway, I'm not sure if the board really wants sidewalk there.
I would agree. I think it's too busy with with the commercial trucks.
And we had heard testimony as it related to the signage. One sign is permitted. I think they had 2 wall signs, but I think I had heard you might be reducing that back to the 1. And then the only other design waiver dealt with the flagpole. So again, I think although he didn't point to each of them directly, Mr. Ward has adequately addressed these through his testimony, and I have no issue with should the board act favorably upon those, given the nature of this application.
Mr. Ward, do you agree with our professional?
I do. Thank you, Ms.
Yeah.
Ward.
Okay, do you feel you need to add anything to what Ms. Newman said?
Not in regards to the design waivers, just to sum up the planning testimony, I mentioned a lot of positives and really compared back to the 2015 approval and the current site condition. I think we're not adding new impacts here. I think we're improving on everything. I think we're going in the right direction significantly. So with that, on balance, I think the positives outweigh the negatives here, allowing the board to approve the application with confidence, and that'll conclude my direct.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Sardo, is there any other professionals? Does that conclude your testimony?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Subject, of
thank
course,
you.
to any responses for public comment or any follow-up questions.
Before we go to public comment, does anybody from the board have any questions they'd like to raise? Okay. Seeing none. Eileen, let's open it up to the public, please. It is 9:37 and 30 seconds, so we'll go to 9:39. We'll leave it open for a minute and a half. Can you please, as we've been doing, please state how the public can unmute themselves?
Yes, and I already have someone with their hand raised. If any member of the public has any questions or comments, please use the raise your hand feature. If you're on the phone, please use *9. Hold on one second. I have Les coming in. Les, you need to unmute and add your video, please.
Okay. Not sure how to add my video. Oh, never mind. I just
Brian, refresh my recollection. Do we swear in members of the public who are offering comment?
We usually do. And
Okay.
Yes.
address.
State their name and
Okay.
address for the record, please.
All right. Les, please raise your right hand. We're going to swear you in. Do you swear from that the testimony you provide before the board this evening will be the truth?
Yes.
Can you please give us your name, spell it if it's difficult, and your address, please?
Les Spindel, Spindel, 46 West Da Vinci Way, Farmingdale, Equestria.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Spindel.
Okay, so in reading the board engineer's review that was part of the minutes or part of the agenda, there were a number of things mentioned in terms of variances required for noise, traffic, appearance, light shining into homes, that sort of thing. And, I think the SO has done a lot that's going to make that whole property much nicer and much better, and I congratulate them for that. But because the variances are needed, presumably because Howell has in place requirements for residential areas that are abutting industrial zones, I just want to make sure that those things are in fact being addressed properly. For example, the tree buffer that exists with Equestria, the 100-foot buffer, as was mentioned, I believe, in the summertime, yes, it's very good for blocking out a lot of things. In the wintertime, when the leaves come off the trees, there's not so much buffer. So if there was a lot of cars at night with light shining toward the houses, that would certainly have an effect. So I just ask that the board appropriately address any remaining variances here to make sure that there will not be a negative impact on surrounding residential area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spindel. So do we want our professionals, Ms. Spiro, to answer that one about the buffering, the plant bufferings, Ms. Newman, or Mr. Ward?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ward, first of all, can you confirm that there is no light spillage from your property onto certainly Cranberry Road or the adjoining residential properties?
I can confirm no spillage.
And as it relates to the buffer, Mr. Spindell, I'm not sure if you heard the testimony or saw the rendering of what's being provided, but they're actually going to be planting the area along Cranberry Road and providing more of a visual screen of the property, which doesn't currently exist there. I'm not sure if that answers all your questions, sir, but anything else?
No.
Thank you.
Okay. We appreciate your testimony, Mr. Spindell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Is there anybody else from the public?
Yes, one moment. I have Mr. Bruger. Mr. Bruger, please put your video and audio on.
Mr. Bruger, we're going to swear you in. Can you please raise your right hand, sir? Mr. Bruger, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide before the board this evening will be the truth?
Yes,
And your name is spelled correctly, B-R-U-G-G-E-R?
that's correct.
And can you please give us your residence address, please?
Sure. It's 183 West Renaissance Boulevard in Farmingdale, New Jersey, 07727.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bruger.
Go ahead.
Please
Sure,
ask your question.
Sure. I agree with Les. The changes that you guys are making to the site are definitely so much better than what's there right now. So thank you very much. The one question I had, are these changes designed to increase the capacity of the business at all? Because truck traffic on that road is still a concern. And I see that they've actually asked for an exception to checklist 16 and 86, which is the traffic study and traffic protection plan. So will this increase these changes that they're making to the site? Is that going to increase the capacity of the business?
Mr. Ward?
Well, Pat,
Or Mr. Sarto, how would you like your professionals to respond? I apologize.
That's fine. I think I can probably answer it. The operations themselves, the equipment and so on and so forth, that is really not going to change at all. What you would see is there's a little bit more office space. You'll see a few more, clerical employees there. But that's insignificant, really. Just a few for the additional office space provided. I think the thrust of the question asked was related to really the contractor vehicles coming and going, and if that's expected to change, and the answer is no, it would remain what it is today. So hopefully that answers Mr. Bruger's question.
When do the trucks travel now, and when will the trucks travel in the future? Are there any restrictions?
The business operates generally Monday to Friday, starting at 6 a.m. Typically, they're all back in the yard anywhere between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. Perhaps maybe a little later during the summer months. And I think, as Mr. Ward testified to, the operations are significantly reduced and curtailed in the winter months. Just that's the nature of paving business generally. But those are the hours of operation. And I guess occasionally on a Saturday or Sunday, maybe there'd be something, but that's not typical.
Okay. And I know the board has already spoken about the sidewalk issue. I would just want to make a note that there are a lot more people now walking and biking along Cranberry Road. So I would just ask everyone to be very careful and considerate.
Thank you, Mr. Bruger. Does that conclude your comments and questions this evening?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else from the
Yes.
public?
I have Alan. I don't know where he went.
He's there.
Go ahead. Alan, you need to turn on your video and audio.
Can Alan, A-L-L-E-N, turn on your video and unmute yourself so you can offer your comment or question?
You can do that typically by moving your mouse to the lower left-hand corner. There you go.
We see you. If you can unmute yourself, then we're ready. And you do that by taking your mouse and hovering over the lower, right above your taskbar. All the way on the left-hand side, you'll see a little microphone. Just click on that.
Eileen, can you manually unmute Alan from your side? Hold on, Alan. We'll get it on our side.
I can't unmute him.
Or if you hold down your space
Can't
bar,
unmute.
Alan, that usually does the trick too. If you hold your space bar while you talk, that should unmute you. It should.
He may not have a microphone properly.
Oh, wait.
So, Alan, I think you got it.
Oh, there you go.
We see your lips moving, but we don't hear anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's unmuted, but we don't hear him.
Alan, can you turn the volume up on your computer?
Yeah, I'll need that. If that doesn't work, we can call in.
Yeah, Alan, we cannot hear you, unfortunately. There's a phone number you could dial to dial in if your microphone isn't working.
Alan, do you want the phone number?
Go ahead, Eileen.
The phone number is 929-205-6099.
And then let us know when you give us a thumbs up when you need the participant ID. Go ahead, Eileen.
Participant webinar ID is 932-9279-9941.
And then the pound sign.
And the pound sign. And then your passcode is 3333 pound sign.
And then I think he's gonna have to do what, *9 to unmute himself?
Yes. Can you press *9, Alan? On your phone?
Well, *9 is to raise hands. Is that also unmute, Eileen?
I'm not sure. I don't call in, so
Can you unmute him from your end, Eileen?
no. It says ask to unmute, but I can't. We're not hearing you, Alan.
This question is for John Sardo. John, since you do this a lot, do you know how to unmute a dial-in phone number?
From the administrator side?
No, from the participant side.
It's *6. It's *6. Yes.
There he is.
Okay, there
All right,
we go.
you're welcome.
*6. Hey. Thank you.
I'm
for
glad
being
I can
patient.
help.
All right, Alan, we're
You
gonna
might have to
we're
mute
gonna
your
swear you in.
computer.
Before we lose you, we're gonna swear you in. Alan, can you please
Okay.
raise your right hand? Alan, do you swear or affirm that any testimony you provide the board this evening will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you give us your name? I mean, we know your first name, but your last name and your residence address, please.
The last name is Wagner, Wagner, and my residence is 228 Cranberry Road.
Thank you very much, sir.
Well, I thank all of you
Wagner, could you please turn the volume off on your computer? We're getting some feedback.
Yeah, I'm hearing it too. Thank you for being patient. I don't know why tonight it's not working. With work,
Okay.
it works. Computer audio connected. Yeah, I'm getting same feedback.
All right, well, why don't you step back, just push your chair back a little bit from the computer.
All right, let's
There
try
you go.
that. Okay, all right. Well, thank you for being patient with me. The previous gentleman had mentioned the noise on Cranberry Road, and I'm sure many of you have heard of this in the past. I would like to bring that up again. It's unfortunately living here gives one firsthand as to what kind of noise we're dealing with the truck traffic, not only with BOSO, but with other companies that are out there as well. This is a residential zone, the section that I live at, which is east of where we're discussing at this point. The truck noise starts early in the morning and goes till late at night. And as the years progress, it's gotten worse. Speed limit's 45. We have children, people over 90, mailboxes. So this is obviously affecting the quality of life. Is a traffic study required at this point? And can we use Route 33 instead of using Cranberry Road as a cutoff?
Ms. Newman, that's something that, I mean, the applicant indicated that they're not changing their operations. They're not adding any more truck traffic than they aren't presently doing. The only traffic they're increasing is the additional administration staff coming to the office building.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. This is a permitted use.
Right. But as the previous two gentlemen had mentioned, and again, pardon me, I'm hearing the echo as well. Engine braking is an issue, and just the number of trucks that are using Cranberry as a cutoff instead of using Route 33, they want to use the light over at the Quick Check on Colts Neck Road. Unfortunately, that leaves those of us that are maybe the 15 houses that remain, we get the brunt of that. So I'm just trying to find out what can we do as a town to bring the speed limit from 45 to 35, or just ask the trucks with a sign to please use Route 33 as opposed to Cranberry Road as a cutoff.
If I could, two things. Number one, this fronts on Cranberry Road. They have no choice to and from their operation. Number two,
I didn't catch the first part. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I think it's your feedback. Can you mute your?
No, I can hear you now. I can hear.
No, but the rest of us.
I can hear you. I couldn't hear Laura.
But when Laura's speaking, we can't hear her because it's feedback. There's too much feedback.
Oh.
So try muting your computer one more time, your computer part.
All right, try that.
What I did property is on Cranberry Road. And no matter what, they're going to have traffic. It has to be
Whoa, not working.
study. Council on a speed study is done by way of.
I think the problem.
Laura, we can't hear. It's not working, Laura. It's too much
Laura, it's on
feedback.
your end.
Maybe you.
I muted my phone.
I think the answer is here, Ms. Newman, is this has really got to go to the council. This is a council in question.
So if I could,
Or is it-
can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so as it related to the trucks, what I had indicated is that this property is on Cranberry Road. So no matter what, there's going to be truck traffic that has to get to and from this site from 33. So they will still have to traverse on Cranberry Road. And as was indicated, there's no change to that operation. And as it relates to a speed study, what I had indicated is Councilwoman Richmond is on. That would require the governing body to enact for a speed study. An engineering study has to actually be done to reduce the speed limit on the road. It could be done through your engineering department in connection with your police department. But that's how that takes place. And based upon a study, it would either support or not support that claim. But that is not something that the applicant would do.
So I had spoken to the traffic manager in the past, and I've had conversations with different police officers throughout the years here. And each one refers me to some other department. So how do we initiate this?
Ms. Richmond? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
You can, no, it's okay. You can send an email to the governing body and then we'll forward it to the correct person. Usually our manager will disseminate it and we'll get to either the chief and he'll forward it to the traffic department. Correct, chief?
Yeah, it's correct. But we've already done traffic studies on Cranberry Road, and I don't know if it was related to Mr. Allen. I'm sorry, I don't know your last name. If it was reference to your complaint, but we've done speed. We've had a speed counter out there. We have other proactive measures we could take. We could put speed trailers out there. We got the speed limit signs that are data driven that we could put up on the telephone pole. We could do all that. We could print it out. We could show it to you. I'll be more than happy to do that. So if you just want to,
Yeah. I've seen the signs and I've seen the electronic units, et cetera. Yeah, it's not as much about speeding per se. It's more about engine braking. We've had people put signs out here to please slow down.
Right.
We do have children. There are people over 90, mailboxes on the street. I could see 30 years ago having a 45 speed limit, but now that the number of trucks, and not just EOSO, but other companies as well, they're using this street as a cut through. The hats off to L&L because he does not use this street at all. He tells his drivers to please use Squonkam Yellowbrook, and they do. They do not use this road.
Right,
but everybody wants to use the traffic light at the intersection of Colts Neck Road and 33. So to avoid going out onto Squonkam to 33.
So absent a weight limit on a roadway, vehicles are able to traverse the roads. That's we've gone through that before with many other roads, especially in the Ramtown section. We've done many studies. We've contacted the DOT, and it's just you really don't get too far with that. And I understand about the traffic light. We've proposed a traffic light at 33 in Yellowbrook for years. It's an awful intersection. It seems like the state just forgets Howell Township when it comes to Route 33. If you notice all the other towns in Monmouth County along Route 33, they're taken care of. So, but pushing it off of Cranberry onto Yellowbrook would just create more traffic for those neighbors. So you're just moving a problem from one street to another. So,
well, actually, many of those houses are given up. If you've seen them recently, they're vacant for various reasons. None of the houses on Cranberry Road are vacant. And I know that several of my neighbors have brought this up to the attention of the mayor with emails. And again, I've spoken to the traffic manager several times. You know, it just seems to be that the residents of this road are overlooked when it comes to a noise issue with the number of trucks, not specific to Yoso, but to everything that comes down this road. And again, they're avoiding going to the other light, to the other intersection, and they want to get the light up here. I've also found trucks that have gone to the corner of Cranberry and Colts Neck and made a right, and then they make a right onto North Main. Well, you could have gotten there quicker if you'd gone down the side of Squonkam Yellowbrook. So is there a way that we can request and put a sign up, the trucks just that are not?
Chairman, may I make a
Specific to the-
suggestion excuse me, Alan, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. It's, so Chairman, can I make a suggestion? Alan, could you email the governing body and maybe together with the manager and the chief, we can come up, no promises here, but I think we can get this application off to a wherever we have to go with this. But as far as this traffic issue, which I know has been going on for quite some time with the residents, maybe we could take this offline and have a little bit of a round table and see what options there are, how to help you, and with the chief's input and the manager's input. I think it's better than doing that right here while we have all the people waiting for this application, if you don't mind.
Right. No, not at all. I just think it's appropriate considering this is residential where we live, and for all the reasons that I mentioned and the other gentleman's mentioned. What's the governing body's email address that I should start with?
Give me a second. And just for the record too, this is an existing use already. Nothing really, I don't think, is changing from what I've been hearing the testimony. So this really shouldn't affect that. So this is a consistent problem that you guys have. So I think it's something we have to work on separately than tonight.
And it seems like Eoso wants to be a very good neighbor with you, and I think.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I'm not taking that away at all.
Yeah.
But considering that we're adding parking spaces, which will add more cars, 25 cars doesn't seem like a lot, but ultimately somebody else is going to add something else, and then we have more traffic on the road, and it's just gotten to a point where if you drive down here tonight or tomorrow morning, there's signs out there that residents are putting out on the street. I've personally spoken to some of the owner managers and asked them to use 33.
I think, and I think just like Councilwoman Richmond suggested, I think we should have this discussions offline, because no matter what we say here.
I think we can do that. And if you have a pen, Alan, I'll quickly give you the email address. You could forward your information, and we will have someone contact you, and we'll see what kind of resolutions, at least. Frozen? Am I frozen? Is everybody frozen?
You're good now.
Oh, okay. So Alan, if you have a pen, I'll be happy to give you the email address.
Go right ahead.
Okay, it's governing, GOVERNING. So it's governing body, BODY, at twp.howell.nj.us. And if you have an issue with it going through, you can always go to the township website and click Ask the Governing Body, mention that you were on here, we spoke, and I'll connect with the chief and the manager, and we'll start discussing options.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for coming here and talking. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good night. Anybody else, Eileen?
Any other members of the public? Any other members of the public wishing to ask questions or comments on this application, please raise your hand. Otherwise, the chairman will close the public portion. And I am not seeing anyone raising their hand.
Okay, so we'll close the public portion of this application. Mr. Sardo, would you like to summarize, please?
Sure, and I'll be very brief. I know he's presented a lot of detailed information here. We're asking that the board grant, the preliminary and final site plan approval and the variance requested, considering the entire proposal presented, understanding that relief's required. We think it's a significant upgrade to the site and will result in a much greater aesthetic and just modernizes the operation, both for the user, but also really is a better aesthetic along the right of way as well. And we're asking the board to approve the application.
Okay. So does the board have any comments?
Just one thing, Brian, just to bring it back, it's been the issue with the meeting with the EC, whether that's going to impact whether there's going to be a vote tonight, just to remind the board. I don't know how we came to a landing on whether you want the applicant to meet with the EC before the board takes a final on this.
So very good point. I forgot about that. So Nick, I don't mean to put you on the spot because I'm the one that brought it up. So in your opinion, based upon the things that they're proposing, they're not really changing what's going on, and they're adding a lot of asphalt as well. I mean, what is the likelihood that you know what, let me state this a different way. Does it possibly make sense if we feel favorable to grant final, but upon approval of the Environmental Commission giving no comment? If there is any comments that the Environmental Commission has, the applicant's got to come back and address those comments. And is that even legal to be done?
Well, you certainly put me on the spot, Brian. You know what? It's a hard decision for me to make because I'm one person on the commission. You know what I mean? They might have different questions, different things. My big one was the asphalt versus gravel. When you are, you're working with contaminants on this property. I know the operations aren't changing, but it still leaves the issue of if there's a spill, if they have, asphalt going to gravel and then it gets into groundwater, it does raise concern. And I understand what Pat said about the drainage issue, and this is compacted gravel. So it is almost an impervious surface. I do get that. I know the other concern were these containers, what's going to be in them. I'm assuming it's asphalt operations type materials. But again,
so would you feel comfortable granting final approval as long as there is no comments from Environmental Commission? And if there is comments, they've got to come back to the board and address those.
Comply, Mr. Chairman. I think what's, instead of putting Nick on the spot, it's very similar to the prior application. If based upon the testimony, the board feels that act upon amended preliminary and final, but if the board goes to the, if the applicant goes to the Environmental Commission and there's something that's going to change the design, it's just as Mr. Tomblakian advised you before.
Gotcha.
You have to then come back to the. So I think the question is, and I think, in fairness, this is a little bit different than the prior application in that this is an amended application, which already had approval for a lot of these things. And, overall is reducing the impervious coverage from today, what exists. I recognize the concerns regarding asphalt to gravel and what was going to be stored. But I think that's what the board weighs is if you feel comfortable that there's not going to be a design change as it relates to Environmental Commission comments, then I think you can act in the affirmative. If you have any concern that there could be a design change to the plan or that the applicant cannot address the concerns of the Environmental Commission, then they'd have to come back to the board.
Yeah. Would a design change entail asphalting? Is that considered a design change?
I think it is because it would change the impervious coverage of the lot.
Right.
I don't think it, well, if I may interject, Laura, I don't know that it does under the ordinance change, coverage is whether gravel.
I think you're correct. How gravel is recognized as impervious just as asphalt is.
Right, but I would also agree with otherwise how you characterize this. I mean, I kind of think of it like we're subject to county board planning board approval as well. And, that's typically something that you might see an approval from after the planning board. And if they required site plan changes, it ultimately might require an applicant to return to the board, despite the fact that preliminary and final have been granted. So, I mean, I would kind of characterize this as a similar situation that we would, of course, agree to meet with the commissions and, of course, any comments that required site plan changes, would require a return to the board. But otherwise, if we were able to meet those conditions without site plan changes or there were no comments, we would just submit, I guess, that review letter or letter to the board secretary and showing that that condition had been satisfied. I don't know if the board attorney feels the same, but I think we would ask that the board grant the approval this evening. That's our request, subject to the board attorney agreeing with my characterization of this.
Effectively, I don't disagree with you, Mr. Sardo, but effectively, what's happening is if you're giving the environmental commission effectively sort of like a post-approval veto, because if your approval is made condition upon a favorable review by the EC, I'm not sure you really want that. So maybe just like the prior applicant, if the board were to consider preliminary, you meet with the EC. If there's no changes, then final, there's no notice. It's kind of perfunctory. You're not changing anything. So it's really up to the chairman, the applicant, but it seems like that would be the most elegant way to finish this. But if you want to do it that way, where it's conditioned on meeting with the environmental commission, but what does that really mean? The environmental commission might come up with ideas that require changes, and now you're kind of starting the ball rolling all over again. So,
hey Nick, what would one condition be? Would it be that all of that area be covered with asphalt under those bays?
No, Chief, I don't think it's the bays. I think it's the storage area, and it's just the potential of, you all know what goes into an asphalt company and their operations. They work with some things that could potentially contaminate the property and offsite properties. So, doing truck maintenance and bringing in equipment from job sites, and there is a potential for leakage and spillage into areas that are considered permeable. But I understand Pat did a great presentation tonight, and I understand the rationale. I just don't want to be in a position where I sit on a commission with, 8 other people. I'm the one making the decision.
Yeah, I get it.
Brian,
and Chairman, if I may, in all fairness, this operation has been in business for 25 years. I didn't hear testimony that the operation is changing. This is more for office and administration purposes. So I'm not getting what the environmental commission may. First of all, they don't even have the authority to tell us what to do. It's based on the testimony that we get from the professional. I mean, they advise us, they may bring some things to light to us that we haven't seen, but this has been in operation for 25 years. And
it's not saying that 25 years, something hasn't been done in that 25 years, Rob. I mean, that's a concern.
I understand, but if there was issues at that property, 9 out of 10 times we would hear about it. So
maybe if I could just summarize what the options are for the board. One is considering preliminary and final site plan approval tonight, with a condition that the applicant has to go and meet belatedly with the environmental commission, and the environmental commission would issue a report, which unless I don't know what that means really, because you've approved it preliminary and final, you can't change it. You could grant preliminary and just hold off on final until they meet and make sure there's no issues that require any design changes. The third option is to just punt the application, delay a vote to allow the EC to meet and issue its recommendations.
No.
Those are the three that I can think of.
Well, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll entertain I'll enter the motion to approve final and preliminary and final.
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Dorado, don't know where he is. Mr.
I'm here.
Paul, was that you that just talked?
Yeah, yes. I'm kind of in a tough spot here because I was on the Environmental Commission. Yes. I vote
Mr.
yes.
I'm in a tougher spot because I am on the Environmental Commission. I mean, I do, listen, this is a great upgrade to the property. Don't get me wrong. But I would like to put a stipulation in that the applicants still meet post-approval with the Environmental Commission just to hash it out. So, you know, what that letter means, Steve, I agree. I don't know what that really does, but it'll make me sleep better at night. So that's my vote is yes, with stipulation of still meeting and coming to see us.
Thank you. Chief Kudrick?
Yeah, I agree with Dick. It's no disrespect to the Environmental Commission. They do an important job. But just like Mr. Nicastro said, this has been in operation for 25 years. This is a significant improvement to the site. And I agree with Mr. Hustler about that the applicant must meet with the Environmental Commission as part of this approval.
Thank you. Mr. Leggio?
Yes.
Mr. Nicastro?
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes, with the stipulations, just as Chief Kudrick put it.
Thank you. Ms. Casper?
Yes.
And Chairman Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. Have a good night.
Very nice job.
You too.
So it's after 10. What do we want to do here?
So we push through. I think this is a short one, right? Eatontown LLC?
The minors.
I'm up for it. I've been up till 11, 12 o'clock every night so far. So I got my half-hour nap in. So, but I think maybe we take a 2 or 3 minute water break.
We can do that.
Okay, we'll keep it to 2 or 3 minutes.
The board's going to take a short recess for just 2 or 3 minutes. We'll be right back. The planning board will now reconvene.
Okay, the next case up is case number SD-2996 1294 Eatontown Boulevard LLC.
Good evening, members of the board, and thank you for hearing us. Ryan Farrell, Bathgate, Wagner, and Wolf in Lakewood on behalf of the applicant, 1294 Eatontown Boulevard LLC.
Thank you.
Mr. Farrell, who do you need brought into the meeting besides Patrick Ward and Michael Savary?
Unless Mr. Kevin McDermott is, I think, in the waiting room. He is the principal of.
You're good.
All right, and that's it. And yes, as you noted, Patrick Ward and Michael Savarese to provide testimony.
Why don't, in order to expedite things, why don't I swear in Patrick, Michael, and we'll swear in Kevin as well, just in case he wants to provide testimony. Okay, so gentlemen, please raise your right hands. Okay. Do you all swear or affirm that any testimony you provide before the board this evening will be the truth?
Yes.
I do.
Okay.
I
Thank
do.
you very much. So, Patrick, we have your information. Michael Savarese, what is your business address, please?
MSA Architects, 34 Sycamore Avenue, Little Silver, New Jersey, 07739.
Thank you. And Mr. McDermott, your business address, please?
16 Doreen Drive, Oceanport, New Jersey, 07757.
Thank you very much. Mr. Farrell, please proceed.
Thank you. And members of the board, if I could just put on the record, there was this is a minor subdivision. The owner is seeking approval to subdivide the property into 2 lots consisting of 10,000 square foot each for future 1-story dwellings with 1-car garage area and a paved drive access. I do want to know for the record, there was a design waiver application In regards to the sidewalks, the applicant is going to withdraw that design waiver application. And at this time, if I could call Patrick Ward for testimony with regards to the engineering aspect.
Now, Patrick, we just swore you in. We've previously qualified you, so I think you're ready to go.
Okay, appreciate it. I'll keep it relatively brief as this is a conforming minor subdivision. What I'll do is, if the board doesn't mind, I just want to share. We did do a color rendering for this as well.
That's marked as A8, Patrick.
Yes, thank you. This is A8, and this is the only exhibit I'll be referring to. So the subject property is on Roosevelt Avenue. It's 151 Roosevelt. We're proposing to subdivide a 100 by 200 lot into a 250 by 200 lots. The property today is vacant, has a couple of trees on it. On the rear and along the north side of the property is drainage easements to the township. On the north side of our property actually is a physical pipe within on our side of the property line within the drainage easement. Like I said, we're proposing compliant 2-lot minor subdivision here. You know, one of the interesting aspects of this application is that the house on the north side is actually under construction, 85% constructed. And the applicant had submitted a zoning permit and was approved, and that's why that house is under construction. A couple of things that associated with these two homes that are going to be proposed here. We are proposing sidewalk, as you can see on this rendering, and we are proposing street trees as required by the ordinance, so no design waivers necessary for that. All utilities will be out to Roosevelt Avenue and will be underground. Off-street parking, we're proposing 3 spaces per dwelling, where 2 are required for 3-bedroom homes. So we exceed the RSIS requirements there. And in terms of just general topography, existing and proposed, the property generally slopes towards the rear, where along the rear of the property is that easement, and there's actually an inlet at the northwest corner of the property. We're seeking to mimic that condition. Some of the property will be, some of the runoff from the property will be directed towards Roosevelt from the driveway areas and such, and then from the rear of the homes, we're seeking to mimic those drainage patterns and enter the township infrastructure at the rear. Otherwise, no other relief requested for variances or design waivers. That's all I have for my direct engineering testimony, Ryan.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Counselor, can you please stop sharing your screen?
That's me, thank you.
Sparrow?
Okay, thank you very much. And at this time, I'd like to call Michael Savarese to provide testimony in regards to the architecture.
Okay. I was previously sworn in on a previous application a month or so ago. So I don't know if you want to do qualification.
Yeah, you're gonna have to requalify, please. Please, for the record.
Okay, so I'm a principal of MSA Architects since 1995. Been practicing architecture since 1989. I'm licensed in New York, New Jersey, Florida, DC, Virginia, about to be Pennsylvania, and Delaware. I've done work up and down the coast. Been with this board 2 or 3 times. I've done work as north as Raritan and south as Bayhead.
We'll accept your credentials. Thank you, Mr. Savarese.
So I'd like to share my screen if I can.
Go right ahead.
Do you guys see that?
Not yet.
Just your screen. We may be seeing your other screen. We just see your desktop.
How about now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we're good.
Move you guys around. So it's basically 2 houses. The one house is actually under construction now, and the lots, as you show, are 50-foot lots. The north house is under construction. I'd say it's probably somewhere in a 60% complete. They're similar to the house that we presented a couple of months ago. So they are 3-bedroom houses with a 1-car garage, a living room, open kitchen, and 2 bathrooms, one for the master and one for the house itself. And they are similar architecture, but a little bit different fronts. So we have a various street fronts. So one has a porch and a gable over the entry. The other one has a sort of a hipped slope back roof and a front door and a set of windows. 2 different types of garage doors, a little different color with siding. So it's trying to keep it as, sorry. So basically, this gray house is the one that's under construction now. It's actually been built blue because when the developer sold it, the client wanted the blue siding instead of gray siding. And this is the south house, which will be the one we're looking for to get approval for the subdivision of lot 50 and 50. So again, they're in the same characteristic of one-story buildings, 3 bedrooms, affordable, pleasing to the eye, architecture that works with the street and works with each other, and I think is very aesthetically pleasing. That's pretty much what I have to say. I mean, I think they're very nice. I think it works. It fits in with the neighborhood, and it keeps that 1-story scale the way we did on the previous application.
Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate that. Does anybody from the board have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a few questions?
Absolutely. Can you want Mr. Sabris to stop sharing his screen?
If he wants to. My questions are for Mr. Ward.
Okay.
Mr. Ward, I know you testified regarding the stormwater, and I recognize this is not a major development, but you did note you'd be contributing overland flow to the township system. Does that system have capacity to handle the flow?
We did note that that was in your review letter, Ms. Newman. We'll be happy to explore that further as a condition of approval, as you mentioned.
And driveway aprons, considering you're providing sidewalk, will be provided?
Yes, and that was indicated on that exhibit as well. Yes.
And the fence that's to be located, you'll get us the height, material, and you can confirm that it complies with the ordinance?
Correct.
And then we have not many, but a few technical comments in item 7 in the bar report. Do you agree to comply with those?
We do.
I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the planning side, Isabel?
No, this application is fully conforming, so there's not really any planning comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Farrell, does that conclude your professionals?
Unless I don't know if Mr. Ward needs to add anything from the planning side. But no, in that case, we'll submit
it to the public.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there's no variances, so I don't think there's any testimony that Mr. Ward would have been obligated to provide.
Agreed. Okay, so it is 10:31, actually just about 10:32. We'll open it for a minute and a half. See if there's any comments from the public.
At this time, the chairman has opened the hearing up for members of the public with any questions or comments on the application for 1294 Eatontown Boulevard LLC. Please use the raise your hand feature. I'll bring you into the meeting one at a time.
So it sounds like from what we learned at the last application, it's *9 to raise your hand from your phone, and it's actually *6 to unmute yourself.
That's correct.
I'm going to save that for future.
Write that one down.
That's right.
I did. I actually did.
Good. I learned it from Tuesday's meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're learning it just in time to probably go back to in-person meetings.
Years.
In some ways, I like this format because I get to see everybody's name, so I don't mess up their names.
Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing any members of the public, so.
Okay, we'll close. It's now 10:33. We'll close the public portion of the meeting. Counselor, would you like to summarize?
At this point, I'm going to rely on the testimony of the experts. I incorporate them into my closing, and it is conforming. On that, I will submit.
Great, thank you. If the board has no further questions, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Dorado,
Yes.
Mr. Husser,
Yes.
Chief Goodrick,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Leggio. Mr. Leggio,
Leggio, you're muted.
is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Nacastro,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Ms. Casper,
Yes.
and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so we have any reason to go into executive session of any sort?
Please, no.
Okay. And we don't have Mr. Bavai, so we don't have a master plan update. Mr. Nacastro, do you want to make any comment on master plan?
No, thank you, but we'll be having a second meeting.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. All right, well, with that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
And don't forget our next meeting.
Yeah, we're on next week. So
Sorry.
all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay,
night,
everyone have a
everybody.
good night.
Good night, everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you.